Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the season finale of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Season 7, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly sponsored by none other than Oris Digital. And that's right folks, after an absolutely brilliant 3 months of incredible GT4 racing action, we have made our way around the globe. We have arrived at our final destination. We are back in the United Kingdom and we are here for our season finale, and for round 8 of 8 we have made our way to what is the king of northwestern circuits in the UK, for it is none other than the Oulton Park International Circuit, where we'll be crowning our champions come the end of tonight. A circuit which is absolutely steeped in history, and indeed steeped in many other regards as well, perhaps none more so than with regards to elevation changes. It is a course which is absolutely brutal on driver bravery, as much as it is in testing our drivers and their ability to be able to set the ultimate qualifying lap. With a naturally narrow road surface combined with its absolute plethora of corners, many of them blind at the apex, this is one of those circuits whereby you've got to be absolutely committed but also have plenty of muscle memory and know that the apex is just out of your vision. Get it right and you may put yourself on pole and therefore have an opportunity to defend well over the entire race distance, but get it wrong however and you're going to need both brave under braking to make those moves count, and also smart with strategy to try and leap your way up through the field. But then again, being smart with strategy, brave under braking and willing to go all in for the overtake, surely those are the qualities of a champion just as much as one lap perfection in qualifying. But who will be our champions? Who will we conduct in the way come the end of today? Well, that's what we're here to see. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side. As you tune in tonight on YouTube, going to youtube.com and searching for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there. In the content if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action from the season finale. And what a season it has been. It has been an absolutely brilliant collection of stories that have been told up and down the field across our overall Drivers' Championship, our AM Drivers' Championship, and also our Teams Championship. But come the end of it all, we do have to close the book, and we do have to write our final chapters here. But don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing, as we do say hello there to you, none other than Lewis Gilbert, who asks, is this iRacing? Indeed, we are looking at iRacing today, and well, I hope you're doing well, Lewis, and you're all set for this brilliant season finale, because we definitely are here in the commentary booth. But in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, as we can see in approximately 13 minutes time, we'll be getting ready to make our way out there into qualifying, 15 minutes in duration, or drives out on the circuit, and all going for the ultimate pole position prize, and of course that very valuable bonus point, particularly for the overall pole. More on that very shortly. Why it could be a deciding factor today when it comes to the overall Drivers' Championship. Then after that, we'll make our way to the grid at 8:15 this evening for what will be our one and only feature race, where we bring the curtain down afterwards and declare our provisional champions. And as always, it is a 60-minute race to see us out, just like all the races that have preceded it. But as we come into this round then, well, let's give you a recap of where we've been over the course of the last 3 months. And as we can see, we have made our way around the globe. We started off, of course, all the way back on the 7th of October at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. And there, well, we opened up with a bang and we got to see some incredible battling. And indeed, Alex Gall taking the fight to none other than Dries van Langendonk, and a very close fight between the two drivers there. And indeed, the McLaren driver trying to be smart on the strategy, but beaten on pace by van Langendonk. Then we did see in round number 2 in the UK, our first of 2 visits, we made our way to the heart of British motorsports. That's Oulton Park and the Oulton Park National Circuit. There were battles aplenty, but it was Alex Gall, Matthias Tem, and also none other than Matthias Penteler and Stuart Reynolds all getting stuck in, and we also saw huge drama in the AM class for what was win it or bin it racing. But after that, we then made our way to France for the Circuit des 24 Hours de Mans, and there at the French circuit, which was all about the test of endurance, we did see there our Ford Mustang drivers in particular absolutely romp away at the very front of the field and all the way through the field. However, in the AM class, it was very close between our drivers, particularly none more so than what was John Bailiff, the current championship leader, batting with his peers and trying to hold on versus the likes of Lee Berridge and company, as they all kept under honest pressure. Then in round number 4, we completed the first half of the championship season and none other than Circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands, and what we got to see there was the fact the sweeping bends of the Dutch circuit, well, they were definitely the home to what could be the king of corners, the McLaren 570S, and that's where Alex Gall absolutely ran away rampant. That was November wrapped up, and then we made our way into December to wrap up 2025, and it was a double header in Germany. And the Nürburgring across the Preisstrecke, or the Grand Prix circuit, what we saw there was a change in fortune at the front, with none other than Stuart Reynolds and Alex Gall going toe-to-toe, and it it would be Reynolds who take his first win of the season there, and he made it another win at the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben on the 16th of December, where Alex Gold in the end lost out under quite intriguing circumstances when all was looking good. A technical issue blighted the car, and it meant he had to come into the pits and then make his way back out a couple of laps down. And then after that, we made our way last time to the Red Bull Ring in Austria, and on the 6th of January, well, what were the stories there? The stories were Stuart Reynolds made it 3 wins in 3 races, and Alex Gold, meanwhile, could only achieve a 4th place, where the fact Reynolds' teammate of Matthias Tem managed to get in the way early on, and the 2 teammates of Fury Simsport ran rampant at the front of the field in their Mercedes, as Alex Gold had to try and force his way through, but unfortunately he wasn't successful in doing so, and meanwhile Niels Court also got stuck into the fight, and so many drivers put their best foot forward there at the very front. But meanwhile in the AM class, we saw John Bailiff absolutely charge afterwards initial pressure from none other than Lee Berridge, but Berridge fell to the wayside with an early spin, and that meant suddenly John Bailiff was given the opportunity to take the win and put the AM Championship title firmly in his control. He doesn't quite have it yet though. He could still lose if it all goes wrong today, but he is the firm favourite. And indeed, we look forward to seeing what's going to unfold there. And now here we are. It's the 20th of January 2026. We're at Oulton Park, and that's how we've got to this point. But if we're going to talk about all our drivers, we need to talk about the championship standings, understandably. And so, as we take a look at the overall Drivers' Championship after 7 rounds, what we can see, it is 3 points that separate our 2 candidates at the very top. Alex Gold, the leader for Chicane and Apex Misters, on 138 points. Arguably, he is the favourite to win today, so long as firstly he can make it to the circuit, because there is a risk he may not be able to make this round due to personal circumstances. It's going to be close. He may just arrive midway through qualifying, and if so, we hope he's able to make it for the simple reason we want to see him out there going for the gold, because at the end of the day, even I think Stuart Reynolds is currently his only rival for the crown, would not want to just pick up through inheritance. He'd want to do it through the fight, but we will see. 3 points separates the 2 of them, and Stuart Reynolds of Fury Simsport, when drop scores are accounted for, well, the problem he's got in the fact he's got more points he needs to gain in order to be able to overhaul what is Alex Gold, and the minimum criteria is he needs to achieve 4 more points than Alex Gold, and that will be the delta between the 2 of them. Matthias Pentelar, meanwhile, he's out of the hunt for the title. He cannot mathematically achieve it now. However, what he can do for RD Simsport is still the deal for 3rd, but he's under pressure from Niels Core for Satellite Racing, who's the only man who could take it from him, and indeed Core's been on absolute bouncer results recently in his BMW M4 Evo, and you have to imagine right now Pentelar will be a little bit worried as he looks in his rearview mirror. Taylor Adams sits in 5th for Regenta Sim Racing, and right now the defending champion, he will no longer be your champion at the end of this season. How the Season 6 champion has put on some great results this season, particularly the one-stop strategy that we did see at the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. A surprise strategy there, but he made it work, and that's why he's in contention for a top 5. However, he will be under pressure, and both Ben Idris Abdullahi and Guy Edwards, who are both 6 points behind him. Then we come to what is 8th place, and John Bailiff, the leading AM driver, well, right now he's 8th overall there for Win It or Bin It Racing, but he has Chris Jennings 3 points behind. Sadly, the Access Simsports driver is not going to be able to make this round, and therefore Bailiff's hold at the top of the overall standings of the AMs, where it looks so it might be relatively safe, with Matt Slight there in 10th place, meanwhile, for Regenta Sim Racing. Then we have Dennis Van Beelen in 11th place, the Chicane and Apex Misters driver, who has taken 2 wins in the AM class this season, and also some incredible results, and he's the man who really has kept Bailiff honest all season, you could say. He sits on 11th alongside Rob Sharp, both on 53 points, and then we do have Jake Cranstone, Simon Povey, and Ollie Carwadine completing the overall top 15. Behind the Racer yellow driver, it said John Roberts, with Hines Matt, Daniel Parron-Smith, Dries Van Langendorf, and Dominic Brennan completing the run to the top 20, albeit Matthias Tem also in 20th place there. The Fury Simsport driver having to miss a couple of rounds, and that's why he's missed some absolutely critical points, otherwise he would be right up inside that top 10. And we do have Gary Toy 22nd place ahead of Lee Berridge, where Kenzo Craig completed your top 24 alongside Ryan Penny for RS Racing Red. And then coming through to the rest of the overall Drivers' Championship on the right hand side of your screen, well, Penny's at the top of the right for RS Racing Red ahead of Trackmouse Races Mark Johnson, arguably the unluckiest driver on the grid this season, with the fact he's been in commanding positions for AM wins and indeed some huge overall points, only to see them fall out of his hands time and time again. Particularly in Germany, the German circuits didn't seem to like him, but he is ahead of Duncan Mariah by 3 points, and then it's 14 points apiece for Mariah, Eric Manningveld, Kim Such, and then we have 13 points for Daniel Kelleher, and outside that top 30, it's Callum Brandt, Paul Goffin, and Jules Gardner all on points, with Andy Marsden yet to achieve any points, and the same for Ben Trier, Colin Wynn, Edward May, Martin Kenyon, Steve Burns, and Mark Kent. So that's the overall Drivers' Championship standings. But before we go any further to talk about the AMs, what about our top 2 then? What are the permutations? What do you need to know as you follow the racing today? Well, we've broken it down as easy as we possibly can here. Of course, we haven't covered every scenario, because otherwise we could present you with slides and slides to this. However, keep this in mind. If Alex Gold finishes first, he is your champion tonight. If he finishes second, Stuart Reynolds must take pole position and finish first to achieve 4 points, which is enough for him to overhaul Gall. Meanwhile, if Alex Gall finishes in third, Reynolds has to finish first. That's by default. He doesn't need to take the pole position. He needs to finish first. However, if Alex Gall does pick up the pole position, then it will be a tie break. And you can talk about that at the very bottom of the screen, but we'll come to that shortly. If we do see Gall finish fourth, meanwhile, Reynolds must either finish first or second to be able to take the title. Meanwhile, if he finishes fifth, Stuart Reynolds must either finish first, second, or third. And in the event of a tie, the rules say we will see the championship title being shared between both drivers. We will not be doing a count back. Unlike some championships, it will be shared as per the rules and regulations of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Championship. And that's how it stands. So do keep that in mind. If you need to, take a screenshot of this slide right now. We'll keep it up for a couple more seconds. And therefore, afterwards, you won't see this again, but we will try and keep you in mind of those title permutations as we go all the way through tonight. So that's how it stands in the overall championship. What about the AM Drivers Championship? Our new championship, of course, for this season, introduced to be able to give everybody further down the grid the opportunity to get involved in plenty of fighting and not feel as though halfway through the season they haven't got a chance to go for a title. And as we can see, John Bailiff, for Win It or Bid It Racing, well, right now, 15 points ahead of Chris Jennings. He arguably is the favourite here. Now, he could lose it, to be fair, but he would need a nightmare day and he would need Jennings to have an absolutely brilliant day. However, that's not going to happen if Jennings isn't on the grid, which sadly he's not. So therefore, what it does mean is the only driver who can theoretically steal it away from him right now is Dennis Van Beelen and also technically Rob Sharp. However, Van Beelen's the one you need to watch out for, given the fact he's got more points he can achieve this season given his drop scores. So Chicane Apex Mr.'s driver right now really needs to win on pole position, and well, he won't necessarily be able to overhaul it just there because it will come down to where John Bailiff finishes in the race. But we will see. With Rob Sharp right now equal with Van Beelen, that's where perhaps the bigger talking point will be. Who out of those two is going to finish second today, or will they be able to leave ahead of Chris Jennings at all, depending on how they fight? Outside of the top four of the AM Drivers' Championship, you then have Ollie Carbadine on 88 points. Only one ahead of his teammate Heinz Mayer, and the fight for fifth is just as intense, and they're only 2 points ahead of John Roberts, who in turn has only got 5 points ahead of his teammate from Boosted Motorsport, Lee Berridge, and it's a further 10 points to Ryan Penny, who's been coming on strong in the last couple of rounds, and Kim Such is only 2 behind, so the fight for fifth is just as important as the fight for third, and second with it. But then we see from Kim Such on 68 points, it's then a further 7 points back to Mark Johnson in 11th place, with Doug Wright on 54 points ahead of Gary Toole, and it's Paul Goffin and Andy Mars do complete your top 15, and outside of the top 15 of the AM Drivers' Championship, it's Eric Mannenveld ahead of Giles Gardner, with Martin Kenyon, Mark Kent, Colin Wynn, and Stephen Burns completing the championship standings. And then lastly, what about the Teams Championship? Well, here we can see Satellite Racing, they lead by 11 points right now. They have broken ahead for the first time this season after jostling back and forth with Chicane and Apex Misters for the last couple of rounds. They've finally taken that lead off of them, and now they'll be looking for one good set of results here to potentially take that title away. Of course, there are plenty of permutations here. We won't be exploring all of them, and we will most likely just talk about this at the very end of the broadcast when we know what the provisional scores look like. Meanwhile, outside the top two, Fury Simsport on 159, they're only 9 ahead of Regenta Sim Racing, and RD Simsport could theoretically steal that third place away if they get a lion's share of points. Then Win It or Bid It Racing are only 1 point ahead of F-Tech Racing. The AM team have really come strong over the course of this season, and F-Tech Racing meanwhile have struggled a little bit in the points acquisition stakes, and they're only ahead of RS Racing Yellow by 10 points, with it being a further 6 to Axis Simsports. Then we do have SRM Yellow completing the top 10 ahead of Masters of Talk, with Boosted Motorsport in 12th place with 50 points, 16 clear of RS Racing Red, and it's SRM ahead of SRM Black, and Full Tilt Motorsport with 0 points to their name. I don't think we'll see them getting any today, unfortunately. But that's the recap of the standings then. And the last little bit of recap we need to do are the prizes from the previous round, from round number 7. And put your hands together and give a round of applause to our round 7 medal winners. Firstly, your overall race winner, who's made it 3 wins on the bounce and all 3 wins in his campaign this season, Stuart Reynolds. Congratulations to him. John Bailiff was your AM class winner at the Red Bull Ring in a brilliant back and forth battle in the early stages with Lee Berridge. Congratulations to him. As for your safest driver, the driver with the lowest incidents, and in the event of a tie, we do take the driver who finished the highest in the running order overall as the safest driver. That was John Bailiff as well, picking up, I believe, his first safest driver award of the season. Congratulations to him. And as for the move of the race, it went to Ryan Penny. But what a move it was, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go. Let's take a look back at the move made by Ryan Penny. Now, this was, of course, at the Red Bull Ring last time out. And to give you context, this was a three-way battle for what was, at the time, a spot inside the top 5 between Ryan Penny and also Lee Berridge. And as they made the way up the hill, Penny there in the white BMW, looking up the inside, went all in on the brakes. And as he did so, well, made a nice initial move there into the Rebus hairpin at turn number 3. Now, as they made the way out at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, so he's made a move, but what's next? Well, he's battling side by side right now with Berridge as they both try to out-drag race each other in the pursuit of none other than Rob Sharp's Porsche in front. But as they made the way onto the brakes, coming down to turn number 4, well, Penny goes very defensive, but you can see there Rob Sharp goes wide, loses the rear of the car, skids back onto the road, makes contact with Penny, and somehow Penny keeps it pointed and keeps it going and takes both places. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how he made it happen. A brilliant contention and what was a contender and indeed the winner of the move of the race there for round number 7 from Ryan Penny. But with that, as we make our way now into the present, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit. We are looking at the international without Britain's layout of the Oulton Park circuit, located in the village of Little Budworth in the county of Cheshire in England, the United Kingdom. A grand total of 14 corners. This circuit right now is synonymous with a whole variety of series, where it be British GT, the British Touring Car Championship, or alternatively GB4 and GB3, or our equivalents in the UK, or Formula 4 and Formula 3. But either way, where it's open wheel or closed wheel, the one thing that's definitely certain about this circuit is it is absolutely an incredible circuit to drive around, where it be in your own car or in a racing car. Because around here, there's very little room to make errors. And if you do, you'll find the grass just as quickly as you'll find those exit curves. But for those who can stay on the tarmac, achieving an ultimate lap around here is going to be a thrill ride. And as they roar the way around, well, the Old Hall corner will open up the lap with the extended right hand and then giving way to the avenue, and down through Denton's they'll go in towards Cascade at turn number 3. The corner that's off camber and entry and flattens out the apex, but as they make the way out of it, it's then be up through Lakeside and in towards Island Bend at turn number 4. Through the very fast left-hander, they'll then go hard onto the brakes at the highly cambered Shell Oil's hairpin corner at turn number 5, before making their way back through the kink of 6, skipping past what is the Britain chicane that would be there on the exit of 6, and instead it's flat out all the way over the hilltop, the highest section of the circuit on the back end, and as they make their way downhill, it's into Hislop chicane at turns 7 and 8, before they come out of Knickerbrook with its interesting history at turn number 9, and up the hill they'll roar into the most narrow part of the circuit at turns 10, 11 and 12, Clay Hill followed by Water Tower, and then of course the absolutely devilishly tricky Druids Corner, where the idea is it's 2 apexes and a right-hander, and you need to hit the second of the apex to get it absolutely right, with the car failing all the road surface changes you're going through. Indeed, it goes from a corner slightly off camber to one that is cambered, and then off to off camber as well. And as they make the way out of it, they'll then come in towards Lodge Bend at turn number 13, and before there you know it, they'll be making the way through Deer Leap and leaping over it to complete lap and do it all over again. And as for our rules for the uninitiated, well, car setup-wise, our drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by the administration. It's the iRacing Sprint fixed setup, and fuel loads have been restricted to 37%. Qualifying, as we mentioned earlier, it's an open qualifying format, which is just getting underway at the moment. We'll be heading to that very shortly, where all the drivers are out of the circuit together for the whole 15 minutes. And as for the race, it shall commence by a double foul rolling start, as to the tradition of this series. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, we should point out. However, the fuel load normally means it is a 2-stop strategy, although we have seen 1-stops this season at Oschersleben. Each driver has one faster pair available should they need to use it, or we may see them come into the pits alternatively for a drive-through penalty, which comes as a result of 18 instant points. Get to 25, they will be disqualified, but we haven't seen any of those this season, and we don't see any of those in a dramatic season finale. Meanwhile, all race tuning shall be conducted post-race. Well, without further ado, that leads us perfectly then back to circuit side, and on to our very first flying laps for our drivers, with 13 minutes still left on the clock here in qualifying. We couldn't have timed that better, if I don't say so myself. But as we do see Matthias Pentelar making his way out of turn number 3, well, right now, well, he'll be looking to go for victory regardless of how the championship permutations play out. We are still waiting to see if Alex Garwood is going to arrive on the scene, but it doesn't look as though he's going to make it. But as our drivers make the way on through, well, right now, we have had confirmation, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, and this does take a little bit of the drama out of the situation. But Alex Garwood is not going to be able to make it to the grid tonight, and therefore, right now, well, for Stuart Reynolds, all he's got to do to take this home is achieve 16 points in the race or over the whole evening. And to give you the idea of what he needs to do, keep an eye on his drop scores, of course, to get those points. Well, the first thing he's going to need to do, well, in fact, does he need to achieve 16 points now? I need to do some maths. That's not the way he's going to achieve any points there if he gets it wrong out of turn number 1. But I believe for Stuart Reynolds, all he needs to do is achieve 4 points here now, and he will take things home very comfortably. But he gets it wrong out of turn number 1. Now, I don't know whether the fact he's just had all the pressure taken off of him by finding out that goal may not be on the grid, or 30 where he's put himself under a lot of pressure, expecting the man to turn up at any moment. But either way, It does mean for Stuart Reynolds, sadly, that right now, well, all the pressure comes off. And, well, for us, of course, we're expecting a bit of drama, but he's already given us a little bit, and we will see. But, of course, whilst it may be a bit more straightforward for him today, there's still plenty to look forward to here, so we're not to be too deflated. As we look to Dennis Van Beelen, as he tiptoes his way on through. Where's the Hislop chicane there in the wonderful Ford Mustang GT4? We're heading up the hill right now. Well, for Van Beelen, he knows that he can theoretically take the AM crown. However, he does need his main rival, John Bailiff, to trip up on himself massively here. That's going to be the mother of all banana skins. And therefore, I think for Van Beelen, it's more of a focus on trying to take that second place in the championship. However, understandably, there are going to be some big names here right now looking for redemption. This is the one who will be looking for it most, Lee Berridge. Now, keep in mind, of course, up until the point when he had his spin at the Red Bull Ring, he was looking as quick, if not quicker, than John Bailiff. And he was putting on an absolute monster race with a lot of fuel saving, and he admitted in what's the driver's debrief room after the race that if he had not had the spin, he was really confident he was going to be in contention for the win, and he would absolutely run away with it in the final stint because he had been doing a huge amount of fuel saving, which we didn't think he was doing, to be fair. We thought he was absolutely flat out, but no, his pace flat out was monstrous, and with fuel saving it was as quick as the very quickest out there when it came to the AM class. So Lee Berridge is always one to watch out for. Right now, all the drivers head towards the end of the first third of this session. As they do, well, we do have Jake Cranston out there in the wonderful pink Porsche. Well, we're expecting the Porsches to be quite strong here today, given the fact the Oulton Park circuit is a course which does open itself up more towards cornering than straight line speed, albeit the fact that we're not running what is the Britain chicane does mean that we do have the higher speeds that we'll see all the way over the hilltop of the backstretch in towards the Hislop chicane. But understandably right now, for the Porsche drivers, I think they're going to be looking at this and salivating a little bit, because Oulton Park is definitely a circuit where if you're in a car that's good in the corners, you've definitely got an ace up your sleeve nicely. As Cranstow comes across the timeline, and as he does so, well, that was not a valid lap. He's going to try and get one on the board now as he roars his way through the corner. But meanwhile, look at the Paul Goffin as he comes towards the timeline, and as he does so, what's it going to be here for Goffin? And the answer is going to be, well, it's currently 7th place there. Nice lap for Goffin, a 37.789. So I think he'll be quite happy with that, but there's still a bit more time to be found out there. And indeed, all of our 19 drivers who've made the trip to northwestern England will be thinking there is more to be achieved before the session is over. And indeed, they have as many laps as they want within the 15-minute window. And when they get to the end of the window, they have overtime as well, in which if they are on the lap, they may finish it, and that lap can count as well. But Heinz Mayer jumps up to 3rd in the AM class, 7th overall. That's a good lap there from Mayer, and he's been a really good story to follow over the course of the season, to be fair, in the fact that he has gradually got stronger and stronger as the season has gone on. In the early stage of the season, he was battling really to try and get to the top 10 of the AM class, or around 7th through to 10th. And since the midpoint, obviously we've had a couple of drivers drop out of the series, as any series would expect. But to be fair to Heinz, he has not moved forward as a result of what has been attrition in the rest of the grid. He's moved forward because the pace that he's been putting on a week in, week out has also moved forward considerably. And that's the great thing about this AM class, what it has done this season, I think. And I think we're definitely going to be looking to take it forward in future seasons. More on that at the end of today's show, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. But something tells me we'll most likely be keeping the AM class, because it has really given a whole new lease of life for our AM drivers. Or those not as quick as pace, they've got something to chase for, and you can see the fact that as the season has gone on, you could actually put their points on a graph, and most of our AM drivers have actually risen in pace notably, to the point whereby they have actually been tickling what is the bottom end of the pros, if you will. Now, of course, if you're wondering how do you tell who are the pros and who are the AMs, you look to the time tower, and those with the red stripe against their names, such as provisional pole sitter Matthias Tem, those are your pro drivers. He's currently the fastest out there on a 36.47. However, if you're looking for the AMs, meanwhile, well, they've got the blue sash against their names, including the likes of none other than what is Ryan Penny, of course, a move of the race winner from round number 7, and right now, well, he's currently the lowest place driver in this qualifying session, but that's not going to be a detriment to what is going to be his ability. We will see what's going to happen here as he makes his way around. As he comes through turn number 1 and in towards turn number 2. Well, right now for Ryan Penny, he's definitely, I think, just trying to get himself all warmed up here. But then again, he has proven himself to be a quicker driver in race conditions rather than what is qualifying conditions. Qualifying has not been his thing this season, and instead what it's really been more of a situation of where he qualifies, ignore that, because he suddenly starts to come through the field, not at the huge rate of knots perhaps, but the Red Bull Ring he definitely was coming through the field like a bit of a missile, and here right now I suspect it's going to be all the same. But also this BMW M4, new of course to the grid for the GT4 class this season, replacing what was the old F82 model. Now that we're into the G series, the G82 here. It has been a car that a lot of drivers have had to get used to, but they've also, everybody has had to get used to the fact that we are on the new GT4 physics and tyre model, whereby we do see these GT4 cars now be a lot more sensitive on the opening couple laps, particularly on cold tyres. And I think that was one of the big things that everybody found out in pre-season testing in our season over at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, where we did have several drivers in the practice session spending more time spinning around rather than pointing in the right direction. And no, they weren't trying to do a dedication to a Dead or Alive's Spin Me Right Round. Indeed, if anybody remembers that song, well, indeed, that gives you an indication of how old I might be. But right now, as the drivers come through, everyone has definitely got acclimatised very quickly to these much more loose on the rear end GT4s in the past, and it's actually led to very dramatic racing between them all, and that's what we love to see. What we also love to see is an onboard lap, and you know what we're going to do today? We're going to come to other drivers who's definitely been improving as the season has gone on. We come on board with Heinz Mayer then, as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Oulton Park International Circuit. So making his way across the timeline then, and as he does, down towards turn 1, looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker, about 125 meters and quarter apex, dropping to 4th gear, and now flat out he exits the bend there, going for the dip to the rise, and in towards Denton's. Here, all the way over to the left, pulls the car to the right there, and now down into Cascades, brake nice and early, don't brake too late or you'll hit the bump in the road, and it will send you straight on. So he avoids the understeer, powers his way out to Cascades, and now flat out all the way past Lakeside, because there's a lake to his left, and then up into Island Bend. Here, 5th gear, dab the brakes, get the weight pitch forward onto the nose of the car and chuck it in. Now bring it nice and quickly over to the left-hand side, hard on the brakes here, all the way down to 3rd gear and through the right-hander of Shell's quarter. Use the camber of the road, bury the throttle, load up the rear left tyre, and now flat out he'll go all the way through the curve of 6. This is where you would be braking if we did run the Britain chicane, but not so. And it's flat out here all the way over the hilltop, and now down he'll come all the way towards what will be the Hislop chicane. Looks to his left-hand side, braking out about 130 meters and quarter apex. From right to left he goes, down to 2nd gear here. Oh, he gets a bit wrong and takes too much speed. And Mayer goes straight on there and into the weeds. And, well, unfortunately for Heinz Mayer, I think there tried to carry so much momentum. I wonder if he hit the inside tyre barrier there, because it did look as though the car went straight on. And I think he might have just glanced it very briefly. Can we get a quick replay of that? And the answer is yes, we can. Can we see from one of the exterior views, did he hit the tyre barrier here? That would explain it. If so, made his way in, that was fine. Then, no. Ooh, I wonder if he clipped the front right tyre on what was the first of the tyre barriers there, because you noticed the car did go straight on. He couldn't turn it into left-hander, so I think he did clip it right there. It was by very fine margins, and well, those tyre barriers, they do not move. They are very resolute. You could say they're filled with a core of concrete inside them. But meanwhile, coming back to the live pictures, well, we got what was 66% of an onboard lap. We're going to have to find the other 33% elsewhere out there. But I'm sure we will in good time as we look to Matthias Pentelar. And in fact, we pick up the lap here as he makes his way on around through Knickerbrook Corner. So out of turn number 9 he goes, 2nd gear, and now powering his way up the hill in towards what will be Clay Hill, and into Water Tower, which does have a water tower ahead on the right-hand side. It's not modelled here, but as he comes into the braking zone, through the right-hander he goes, a Druid's Bend, and here he decides to hit both apexes. It is one of the two lines you can take. One sees you going very deep and turning in, the other sees you clipping both apex curves. Pentelar goes for latter. Now hard the brakes here, all the way in towards Lodge Bend, and he drops down to 2nd gear, flat on the throttle now, but goes into depression over the top at a 13-degree incline, and now all the way towards the timeline he goes, and that's what a lap of the Oulton Park International Circuit looks like. And Pentelar does not improve there, but he completes our picture, and you can see all those constant irregularities in what is the elevation changes, where you go from rises to falls and falls to rises, from drops to peaks, and it really is a circuit that keeps you guessing. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it is one of those circuits, if you ever get the chance to visit it, if you ever get the chance to take a car out of the circuit, it is worth it, because the simulator here at iRacing captures it absolutely brilliantly. All the elevation changes, the rises and falls, and how narrow that circuit width is, and you can really feel how it comes to life on the simulator as much as it does when you go out there in a car of your own, or alternatively a car that you may rent for the day. But right now, as all our drivers make the way on through, well, we're not too far away now from seeing where they're all going to line up for this one. And Stuart Reynolds right now, he is currently a provisional pole sitter by 2.5 tenths over Matthias Tem. It could be a 1-2 lockout on that front row for Fury Sim Sports, and this will put a point in his pocket immediately. And he's only got to find a couple more, and then he will be your de facto champion provisionally until all the final standings have been calculated. But Reynolds right now looking to keep it all together here, and knowing the hard work is no longer perhaps as extensive as he thought it might have been in the first place. but continue to head on around at the moment. Of course, the one thing he can't do is take his foot off the gas until the job is done. What about in the AM class, meanwhile, where it is currently John Bailiff, the Winner or Bennett Racing driver, where he does have a grand total of what is several wins to his name, and in terms of the actual number of those wins, well, he's in control of his destiny, and I do believe now and he has had the best part of what is none other than 4 wins to his name over the course of this season, with 2 of them being in the hands, of course, of none other than Dennis Van Beelen. One of them also being in the hands of his teammate, and that was at Donington Park of Eric Mannenveld, as Bailiff gets it quite wrong there at Druids Bend, and well, then releasing several drives on through. But if anybody remembers that, if you don't, well, a quick recap of what happened at Donington Park to this man. It was a 1-2 as it was looking for Win It or Bid It race, and they were in complete control of the race at Donington Park National, and then suddenly the engine went on his BMW M4, and what was looking to be a certain result was absolutely cast to the wind. He did bring it into the pits. He got back out onto the circuit, and indeed he was able to salvage a result. He was able to claw some points back. However, it was an absolutely brutal way to take away what could have been one of the strongest performances in the AM class of the season for a team dedicated to the AM class. But that's the way it sometimes goes. It's, oh my goodness, the car's snapping left and right, and I think their Bailiff has had a bit of contact with a barrier at some point, or he hit a curb very hard because that car is not pointing the way it should do into the corners, and that's to be a toe to the pits there for Bailiff. As we look back to Pentala, the RD Supersport driver, as he comes roaring on through, and as he does so right now, well, we know he's had quite a bit of a rivalry with Stuart Reynolds in particular for the whole season, and the number 12 driver right now will be hoping to continue that rivalry, but I get the feeling it might be the battle of the two Matthiases today, spelled slightly differently to each other, but both with the same sounding name. First name, that is, as we do see 10 making his way back onto the road after a bit of a trip wide at Knickerbrook Corner, and well, Knickerbrook Corner taking its name from the fact that essentially a pair of women's undergarments was found there when explosives were being blown up in order to create the corner. And the man who is doing it, quite a, not a comical name, but in a coincidental name, the man who tells the story of it all is a gentleman named Buster Barnes, of all things, or Buster Bates, I should say. But yes, the whole concept of Knickerbrook Corner was there was a couple eloping there and getting quite intimate. The explosives were blown in order to bring down what's a tree, and well, a couple ran away from the scene, and there were a pair of women's undergarments found at the site of the corner, and so it got the corner name of Knickerbrook. Knickers, of course, because of the English way referring to a lady's undergarments, and brook in the fact that it was a brook as in a foliage brook. Well, that's how the story goes. But right now, how the story goes, well, nobody will be throwing their panties into the air other than Stuart Reynolds right now, because he will be looking to be on pole position overall with his teammate Matthias Temp alongside him. And as for the AM class, it's looking as though it's going to be John Bailiff who's going to be taking it, unless anybody could have a last gasp here and what could be that pole position. So Beelan here comes to the timeline. He's currently the second fastest. He crossed the line. He's a whole second off the overall pole time. And what is the best part there of 2/10 of a Bailiff's time? It's not enough. Rob Sharp across the line, and the best he could achieve is a 37.506. He holds him in 6th place in the AM class and 13th overall, but still, that is the story there, and it's all said and done for Rob Sharp, as it is indeed for all the drivers, as they all call it down. And well, Simon Povey crossed the line there in the AO Racing dedicated Reximobile. Well, he puts himself into 5th there. Well done to Simon, leaving it late in the day, but better late than never, I say. The 36.647 there rewarded him very nicely. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is complete. It is time to get ready to head to the grid for our final race of the season. And as we do wait for that transition to the grid, we do say hello there to our official photographer for the series, the man who's put together those incredible photos you've seen in the intros week in, week out. It's none other than Jules Gardner. Good evening to you, Jules, and I hope you're doing well, good sir. We're missing seeing you on the grid today, but we wanted to make sure that it was your car that was the thumbnail photo for this broadcast, because your photos have been incredible. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, if you're into sim racing photography or you're looking for someone, get in touch with Jules there in the YouTube chat. He does a brilliant job indeed. Some of his photos, you would think they were the real thing in terms of the fact you wouldn't think it was on a simulator, and that is the quality of his work. But as our circuit does fall silent, well, there's not a cloud in sight at the moment really over the circuit. There's some off in the distance heading towards Liverpool, which is only the best part of, I do believe, about 30 minutes drive northwards of the Oulton Park circuit. And you do have Chester, what is the best part of another 30 minutes off to the northwest, if my geography is correct. But this circuit right now, of course, arising as a result of a need for somewhere for drivers to go racing in the northern part of England and subsequently Scotland, and that's why it's a very popular circuit with Scottish series just as much with English series. But right now, we head to the grid, and this is how our drivers line up then for our season finale race. So in round 8 of 8 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Season 7, sponsored by Oris Digital, brought to you on iRacing. It is Stuart Reynolds who lines up on pole position for Fury Sim Sport, and he will be joined on the front row not by his teammates in the end. And indeed, Matthias Pentelar getting the job done right at the end of the qualifying session to pip Matthias Tem to what is that front row, and the gap between the two of them, it was 3 thousandths in the end between the Finn and the Dutchman. So instead, Matthias Tem has to start the day third for Fury Sim Sport, but expect him to become the full Fury of his team's name, ahead of Niels Kaur, who starts fourth there for Satellite Racing, only a further 10th behind if that. Then for the number 15, it'll be the number 10 of Simon Povey, who left it to the very last gasp for F-Tech Racing and put himself nicely in 5th place. He was only a 10th further behind, and well, he was only 200ths quicker than Satellite Racing's Ben Idris Abdullahi, who right now in started 6th, well, behind his teammate Niels Kaur. They may just be able to take that team's championship crown. Then it's John Bailiff, your AM pole sitter, and the winner of Bennett Racing driver. He'll be hoping now he can convert that into what will be his 5th win of the season, and with it, the cherry on the top with regards to his AM championship crown, he'll become the maiden AM champion, ahead of Jake Cranstone, who starts in 8th place of Masters of Talk after a decent qualifying session, but he'll be hoping there's more pace to come as we go green flag racing. Then Van Beelen starts 9th for Chicane and Apex Misses. 9, he needs to beat Bailiff, but also beat all of his rivals in the AM class if he wants to be able to guarantee that second place spot ahead of Chris Jennings and also Rob Sharp. Mark Johnson, meanwhile, starts 10th there for Track Mouse Racing, completing that top 10 overall and third of the AMs. Outside of your top 10, it's then Paul Goffin, who begins the day 11th for SRM Black, head of Oris Racing Yellow's Heinz Mayer. The South African driver will then have the follow-up of the two Britons of Rob Sharp for Burris Racing and Oris Racing Yellow's Ollie Carwadine. And then we do have none other than Lee Berridge beginning his day from Boosted Motorsport in 15th place, head of Oris Racing Red's Ryan Penny. With the final full row of the grid going to the pairing of Kim Such and John Roberts for Boosted Motorsport. And Boosted Motorsport once again having a dismal qualifying session, but can they turn it around in the race? And last but not least, Andy Marston brings up the rear in 19th place at SRM Black. Always there, having fun of course, and learning as he goes. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the grid as it's set, and the formation lap gets underway. We are only on a partial formation lap here today as they make their way through what is, I believe, their Druids Bend, unless I'm very much mistaken. Indeed, they come through, and well, very shortly we are going to be green flag racing as they all get themselves set and ready to go. Stuart Reynolds is going to be the man who dictates the pace as they get ready to make their way out of the final corner. Our BMW M2 CS Racing safety car there will take them so far, and it will be to Reynolds to take them to the green for what will be a grand total of 60 minutes of racing. And it's lights out and away we go for the final time this season. Stuart Reynolds leaves it as early as possible to go. And as he does so, we'll look on the left. Simon Povey immediately on attack, 3 wide behind. And as they make their way into the braking zone, Povey, they squeezes one for it to reverse most of the manoeuvre. And Matthias Tem is robbed left, right and centre. That man right now is going to be wondering exactly where they all came from. But as they come down towards 2 and 3, it's going to be the leaders battling. Pentelar's right on the inside. And his rival Stuart Reynolds has not got away. Even if the flames have been slightly dampened down over the last couple of rounds, well, they're immediately back up to light. And right now, Pentelar and Reynolds are going to give us an absolute delight here as they make their way onwards. Everyone's safely through the opening few corners, and Pentelar takes the lead as John Bailiff, meanwhile, your AM pole sitter, he holds on to 6th. He's going 1 place over Ben Idris Abdullahi, who's tucked in behind. But of course, this is just the initial setting as it's a bit slow. And everyone in front, car round in front of Simon Povey's gone round as the whole field has to thread the needle round. I was wondering why they're all grouping up so quickly, and in the end, well, Simon Povey's the man who's gone round. I think he's been involved in some contact, and he's immediately had to tow to the pitch due to some sort of damage. We'll give you an update on that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, the top 3 have already absconded as a result of that. It's put a real split in the field, and we can see right now your top 3 together. Meanwhile, Matthias Tem, he's trying to put the proverbial cork in the bottle here, trying to stop the flow of places as Tim Cranstone is your 2 pro drivers. And then we do have your AM leader, John Bailiff, queued up behind, but he's got Van Beelen right behind him and Mark Johnson. They've all had a very good start there, but one of the bigger starters, Lee Berridge. Remember what we said, the Boosted Motorsport drivers, dismal qualifying performances. They've got a reputation for that now based on the second half of the season. They don't qualify well, but suddenly you put them under race conditions, it's almost as if they flick a different switch. And well, Berridge right now is absolutely flying. He's already up to 6th place in the AM class, ahead of Penny and Such, with Heinz man Oliver Carwadine both struggling at the start of this race. And well, we've got some battles going on here as they make their way towards the end of lap number 1. So after 1 tour of the circuits, Matthias Pentelar ahead of Stuart Reynolds, followed by Niels Kaur. Then you've got a 2-second gap before you get to full place man Matthias Tem. He's followed up by Cranstone. Then it's Bailiff, your leader of the AM class, ahead of Dennis Van Beelen, who's right on his backside here. And well, we're already getting flashbacks here to previous rounds of the season, perhaps none more so than at Le Mans, where the 2 contested it, and it fell to Van Beelen in the end in an absolutely brilliant battle. Mark Johnson is your third AM driver right now in 8th place ahead of Rob Sharp. With Vinicius Abdullahi completing it. Your top 10 ahead of Lee Berridge of the 2 swap places. And Paul Goffin's lost out. He's going to lose 1. He's going to lose 2 as Ryan Petty picks up another place here. Petty is really going right now. The BMW driver, Oris Racing Digital Red, is flying out there. Right, I can imagine that for Ryan Petty, since receiving that Move of the Race award, I think that's really just giving that extra little bit of zing to absolutely go all in here. And credit where it's due for the number 99 driver. He earned that award the right way, and right now he's earning these places the right way here today. He goes, and as we do, we look back to Ollie Carwadine, and he's on the back of Heinz Mayer. These two, they've had some fighting, and we'll both racing for Oris Racing Yellow, of course, the 2 teammates here, and we have seen some good scraps between the Oris Racing drivers, and well, they do seem to have a mindset of protect your teammate first, don't make contact with them, have a little bit of fun with them when absolutely feeling safe to do so, and it's normally been Mayer who's got the upper hand on Carwadine, particularly in the latter half of the season, whereas in the earlier half of the season, they did have an even rate of performances, but I think that's been a sign of the fact that both drivers have been pushing each other along, and Mayer's the one who's grown a little bit more perhaps, but Carwadine has never been too far behind as they make the way out of Druids Bend, and well, number 14 driver here falling backwards a little bit at the moment, but I can imagine that right now this is just as much, I think, going to be giving himself a bit more visibility of the road ahead, and also starting to manage some fuel, and also just making sure those tyres are brought into their heating cycle properly, because remember, of course, these tyres now, they take 2 to 3 laps to warm up properly, and after that you still need to protect them. You cannot push them as hard as you used to, because otherwise, like those rears up in particular, with all these machines being rear-wheel drive, whether the front engine or mid-engine, and all of a sudden it could go wrong, but it won't go wrong there for Idris Abdullahi, who goes up the inside to the outside there of Rob Sharp, the Oburis Digital Racing driver in the number 86. Well, right now he's more focused, I think, on making sure Berridge stays behind him. But with that, and our opening couple of laps behind us, hold up a second, hold the phone, that's a car going around. That's John Roberts going siphoning one way than the other, coming out to Cascade, and the boosted Motorsport Ford Mustang there. We saw it briefly at the rear of the picture, a car going sideways, and in the end, the Ford Mustang and Roberts going spinning on around, so easy to do, coming out of the Cascades Bend, and well, he's fallen foul there of the grass, but I could imagine he'll get himself back together very quickly and not let it knock him out. But as he makes his way onwards, well, he now has a 12-second gap to close down to likes of Andy Barston and Oliver Carwadine, and then he'll be able to get right back in the thick of the pack. But as he brings himself back together and things are settled up the front of the field, what I was going to say is we need to take a look back at some of our big moments from earlier on in the race, and well, we start off, ladies and gentlemen, taking a look back at that race start. And it was an absolutely brilliant start for all the drivers here as they went green flag race. And Matthias Pentelat and Stuart Reynolds, well, they won your front row. And Reynolds went immediately. As soon as the safety car was beyond the safety car pit entry line, he went, knowing the RD Simsport driver was probably going to go with him. And he did. It was 3 wide behind me. One absolutely brilliant battle here. And Simon Povey went all in the number 10. And, well, in trying to do so, made one place. Then he tried to make another. And for what was in the mid-pack, Mark Johnson had a bit of a slow start. But I think he went to stay out of the dangers. They all went 2-3 wide coming down the hill, and everybody there keeping it nice and firmly together. Some brilliant battling in amongst the mid pack. But then what went wrong for Simon Povey? This is the question mark that we have on the race start. So your 2 leaders, Pentelat just getting ahead, and then we could see Niels Kaur tucking into 3rd. Povey made his way out of Island Bend onto the brakes. Ooh, that was a dive up the inside there for Matthias Tem, and suddenly Povey went round, and well, after that held his brakes and just waited. But I can imagine there, the knock to the side of the car, I think, may have just knocked the car out of the running, and that was Simon Povey's race over with, I can imagine. And perhaps the contact, that's also the way the car came up on the curve there, just knocked the suspension about, and that's what put him out of the race, sadly, for Simon Povey. And I think Tem there, well, he went all in, but I don't think he perhaps meant to go all in, and it just didn't work out a trick. But we come back to what happened to John Roberts 2 laps later. And this was Roberts making his way out to Cascades. Had gone deep already. The rear of the car started to slide loose, then tapped the grass to the rear right tyre. And I thought he would have got it corrected there, but it looked like there was more weight transfer still going on. And when then the car pulled to the left, he tried to counter steer it and overcorrected it. And well, once it starts to go, it's not easy to get the cars back from a snap. But meanwhile, just like that, we snap back to your live race, and in good time as well, as Pentelat and Reynolds are now battling each other as they make the way under braking it in towards turn 13. And Reynolds here still looking left, he's looking right, and right now, well, he's absolutely wanting to pick a fight. He goes all the way to the pit wall there. You can do that, to be fair. It's the widest part of the circuit, it's the start-finish straight. And Reynolds going all in for the move as Pentelar gives him plenty of space to do so. But this fight is only going to bring Core right in close. So remember what Niels Core was able to do at the Red Bull Ring when everybody else was fighting in front of him. He just simply fuel saved by comparison, and it worked out perfectly for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if Core's going to do the same here today as we ride aboard with your third place man as he makes his way out of the corner. His game plan has got to be just let them fight and make sure you don't lose the centre of the slipstream in front, because that will help on the straights. But Pentelar going defensive into Island Bend, then into Shellwell's corner. He looks one way, then the other. Reynolds meanwhile returns in kind here, and right now Reynolds, I think he's literally using every bit of tarmac. Well, these drivers all had to pay to be here today, and right now, understandably, I think Reynolds has decided he's going to get his money's worth out of Oulton Park as they make the way over the hill. But it's a drag race here. Mercedes on Mercedes, both cars equal machinery. It's all going to be down to the drivers here as they make their way towards the braking zone for his lops, and hard on the brakes they go. Pentelar on the inside, he'll go absolutely defensive, and Core meanwhile just watching this right now. He really does have the popcorn seat view. We've got to envy him because he's enjoyed absolute spectacle in front, although I don't think he actually has the time to be able to sit back and relax and watch this. I think he's got to keep a stern eye on Reynolds, and particularly his brake lights, to make sure that he doesn't end up coming into the back of him. Of course, the concertina effect there saying that when you are in a pack of cars, being the last car of it, you have to brake earlier than everybody else, and it continues to apply all the way through the group. As the Fury Sim Sport driver continues to hound and harass Pentelar, well, Niels Core here does not show any signs of looking for a move, and he's very clear about that. What you'll notice in the body language where he positions the car, it can be used to try and psych out a driver, but he's immediately tucking on the racing line. He is never pointing the car on what is the offline or the inside towards a corner, because what he's trying to do is say to Reynolds, I'm just here to watch. You do you. I'm not involved in this right now. And well, later on the race, he might start to play little feints. He might use that logic if Reynolds is going to assume he's never going to push him. Alternatively, of course, he's fuel saving right now and therefore able to get a strategic advantage. He's got a lot of options to play with here, has Core, and that's what's going to make this interesting. As Matthias Temp, after his brief crunch moment with Simon Povey, he's getting closer as well. But here comes Reynolds again. Looking down the outside, it is literally deja vu for the previous lap. But what does Pentelar do this time? He puts the car right in the middle of the road. He realises that Mercedes, at the best part of 2.1 metres wide, it's wide enough to really make it difficult to look around the outside of the inside when you go into Shell Oils if you put it dead into the road. It's a smart move in there, but as they move over the rise of Hilltop, of course, all these cars, for the best part of 2 metres, they are built to regulations, which say they have to be a certain width as a minimum. Once they make the way through the right to the left right now, no change between this group. Meanwhile, further back, we take a look to the full place battle in the AM class. Rob Sharp is under pressure from Lee Berridge. And well, here we're seeing two very different beasts of machinery, whereby you do have that huge 5-litre V8 muscle of an engine in that Ford Mustang chasing down what is the more delicate 4-cylinder machinery, if my memory serves me correctly, of the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. However, these cars gain their lap time through different means. The Porsche is all known about the corners. Of course, that's one of the big things that Porsche as a manufacturing company is known for, the art of the corner, particularly with its 911 models, with the engine being in the rear axle position where it sits, whereas here it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive in the Club Sport GT4 machine, whereby it has to sit essentially over what is the rear of the car, but not over the rear axle. It has to sit behind the driver and between the axle and the driver as a result. But that gives it still great weight distribution, whereas the Mustang is front engine rear-wheel drive, and therefore it blasts its way on the straights, but it suffers in the corners with understeer until it ends up having a bit of oversteer in comparison. Through the opening corner they come, and Ryan Penny's getting onto the back of this. Carries a bit too much speed there through the opening corner. That's going to be an off track. That'll be an instant point he's going to use up, and he's going to have to burn a bit of time back. As he does so, as Paul Goffin gets onto the back of him now, and we're coming down the hill there. Goffin right now enjoying the run behind Penny, and up the hill they go then in towards Shell Oils. But fighting going on everywhere you look on the field at the moment, as all these drivers enjoying themselves. As they get closer and closer towards what will be the 20-minute mark of this race, I can imagine the attention is going to be turning more and more towards strategy, as Sharp having a bit of a move being made by Berridge there. Berridge up the inside in towards Shell Oils Bend, and Lee Berridge takes it just like that. Berridge going all in for the move and being rewarded. And at this point, I don't think Rob Sharp's going to have a response here, because Berridge has done it at the perfect place. He's done it coming onto a long straight, which we know, 5th and 6th gear in that Mustang, it is untouchable. Le Mans showed us that, whereby he absolutely, amongst his other 4 Mustang peers, demonstrated on the stretches nobody could touch that car. And of course, the driver who demonstrated it more than anybody else, well, was our 4 Mustang driver, and unfortunately not on the grid today, of Daniel Parent-Smith, who took his only win of the season when an absolute monster of a masterclass driver at Le Mans in the Ford Mustang. But we take a quick look back at that move made by Lee Berridge on Rob Sharp. So here coming out of Island Bend as he derated the engine coming down to the braking zone. The number 41 driver there looks to the inside. Sharp did close it off, to be fair, but as they exited, he just went a little bit deep off the apex, and as a result, Berry's decided, if I can do it now, I'm going to get it done. And well, he definitely got it done straight away. But coming back to your live racing, well, what else is happening now? We look back to the front, because whilst all the fight is definitely kicking off in what is the fight for 5th place in the AM class, with Sharp, Penny, Goffin, Such, May and Cowardine all chasing after Berridge, who's the 4th place man. Well, meanwhile, the lead battle, your top 3, still very much tucked together here as they come towards the end of what is the opening half of the lap. And right now for Matthias Pentelar, all he needs to do at this point is control the pace of this group. And the idea being, of course, that as the lead car, he can't fuel save by running the draft of another car. It's impossible to do so, but what he can do is lift and coast a little bit and just simply make sure he doesn't use as much fuel before those braking zones. Of course, his rivals then have to make a decision. Do they decide to tuck in and run to his pace, or do they instead decide to try and find a move on him? And well, for Stuart Reynolds at the moment, well, he may not have the pressure of Alex Gar on the grid, but right now, what I can tell you one thing is he wants to end this season with a win. He wants to make it 4 on the bounce come this season finale, and well, to do so, he's going to have to find a way past the man in front of him, but he's also going to have to find a way to make sure that Niels Core doesn't get the advantage. And I think what Reynolds feels, the Fury Supersport Mercedes, is that if he is able to get into the lead, he may just be able to make the break. I think that's why he's refusing to back down at the moment, although I wonder whether that complexion is going to change soon, because we're almost a quarter of the distance, and well, that's where we're starting to think more about the first pit stop. There's more changes to come. Sharp and Berridge are getting very close, and now Rob Sharp is all over the back of Lee Berridge like a bad rash. So Berridge may have got ahead, but Rob Sharp right now, particularly through the latter half of the lap, he is demonstrating the fact that Porsche's got so much pace on the back end of the circuit. And well, Berridge there goes a bit deep there coming out of Lodge Bend. Here comes the Porsche. Can he outrun Berridge all the way to the inside to turn 1? I don't think Sharp can. He's just not got enough there, but you can see the differences in where these cars pick up their pace and where they lose out, as we briefly lose Berridge and he rematerialises from the ether. But right now for Lee Berridge, this is definitely a race where he's going to be under a lot of pressure. And for Rob Sharp, well, can he afford to back off even slightly given the queue of cars that is forming behind them all? And that's going to be the problem here, is the fact that right now Lee Berridge, so long as he leads this group, I think he'll naturally cause Sharp to be under increasing levels of pressure. But all these AM drivers right now will be looking at this and thinking, well, how do I turn this to my advantage? And the game plan, particularly if you're, say, Paul Goffin in the 164, you've got to be thinking about, essentially, can you come into the pits perhaps a little bit sooner and get yourself out of the queue of cars rather than find yourself stuck in it? Because otherwise, all you're doing is you're running to the pace of the cars in front. Well, that's going to be something that only he can decide. Indeed, strategy is going to come down to the driver and any of the teammates they have on the pit wall guiding them. The crest they go, and Oliver Carwadine there taking a quick look to the inside versus Such. Of course, the sister team machine, the Oris Digital Racing red car ahead of the yellow car at the moment, and how you can tell them is based on the wind mirrors, whereby the yellow cars do have yellow wind mirrors, and also the side edge of the rear wing, which does have the coloration, and also the fact, lastly, that your red cars do have the white paint scheme, whereas the yellow cars have the black paint scheme. Sounds a little bit complex, but trust us, there is some method in the madness there, and they seem to have some very fine liveries on the car, no doubt about it. Meanwhile, as they carry on, we come back to your AM lead battle. Now, interesting this one, because many of you may remember at the Red Bull Ring there was a lot of excitement between these two you see on screen. Jake Cranstone is in the pink Porsche for F-Tech Racing, and John Bailiff's behind him. Now, back at the Red Bull Ring, we also had in the mix there Lee Berridge amongst others, and also I do believe we had Simon Povey right at the thick of the fight, and it was the two AM leaders battling with the two, 7th and 8th place runners in the pro class at the time, albeit the pros don't have their own class points or own championship. We just talk about that to give you an idea of where they were in the running order, but it led to what was an absolutely fascinating back and forth essentially, whereby the pros refused to give in, but they're going to have to give it in because Jake Cranstone has completely set himself wide there where Shellwell's bend. And well, goodness me, I'm not quite sure how he's managed that in the number 78. He's lost his rear wing for it. I think the car's rolled up the hill and essentially gone into the tyre barrier, and he's propelled himself back forward. But I wouldn't be surprised that's going to be a trip to the pit lane soon. Well, he's coming up to one either way, but I can imagine that's going to be a fast repair quickly going on, and the guys have to get that rear wing back on the car, because otherwise right now that's going to be a loss of downforce, and that is not going to help him whatsoever. But the point being, it was getting interesting just because Bailiff was getting caught up behind the Porsche driver there of Cranstone, and well, it was going to be perhaps a repeat of what we saw at the Red Bull Ring only 2 weeks ago. But with the blockage perhaps released there, as Bailiff may feel it was, well, the fact of the matter is Dennis Van Beelen's still with him, and Mark Johnson is there as well. Now, Mark Johnson, of course, in that McLaren 570S has had a season which has been a bit of a troubling one. He has been very quick. However, every time he has been quick or looking towards the front of the field, well, bad luck has struck him, and he normally has had then to lose a load of places either due to a spin, and at the Red Bull Ring, of course, the final corner catched him out twice in quick succession, and seeing what was an opportunity to take a podium, demoted in the end to what was chasing the bottom end of the top 10 in the AM class. And we're hoping that the bad luck stays away today, because how much bad luck can a man have is the question. And well, if you're Mark Johnson, it seems though right now it's endless, but hopefully not so here. Hopefully all the bad luck's got away and he can finally buy a lottery ticket. As he makes his way onwards towards turn 4, we will see. But what we're also going to see is what exactly happened to Jake Cranstone 8 months ago, and here was the onboard. So this was Cranstone making his way through. Let's listen in. And under braking there, well, the car looks settled, but I wonder if Cranstone accidentally downshifted, because you may have heard, as he made his way to turn into the apex, he downshifted again, and I think that caused the rear wheels to spin up a bit too aggressively, and that's what sent the car around there for Jake Cranstone. So, an error perhaps on his approach to the corner, but it's cost him a lot of time for Masters of Torque. So in the end, as we make our way back to the race, let's carry on. We'll still plenty of stories out there, no doubt about it. And from what is the top 3 of the AM class, we come back to the 4th through to 10th battle of the AM class here, which right now is an extensive long line of cars. They haven't been told to run in this procession, ladies and gentlemen. I can promise you that right now. This is Oulton Park at its finest, in terms of the fact when you have several very equally matched drivers all together, you do have to run like this until one gets ballsy enough to be able to look to a move. Alternatively, he decides to do something on strategy. But right now, your number 86 there for a Burris Digital of Rob Sharp. Well, he's got all the speed of the corners. You can see that versus the Mustang of Berridge, but he just hasn't got enough of the straights to be able to respond. They really are the opposite ends of maximising and minimising strengths and weaknesses right now. And well, for Sharp, he's got to be imagining that a pit stop's going to help him or not. The only thing I wonder is where he's worried if he doesn't have the air of another car in front of him, whether he's going to lose out in the straight and release the pressure of Lee Berridge, because he wants then for Ryan Penny, this man behind, to get close enough. The same for Paul Goffin. He'd want everybody to put that pressure on. But Berridge right now under increasing pressure as they come down the hill, and in the end he just holds on as people behind. That's Heinz Mayer. That's in there with Paul Goffin, and in the end Goffin going defensive as Mayer had a really good run. Goffin ran wide out of turn of 1, and through Denton's it was Mayer who looked for the move, and Mayer right now continues to push on as we ride aboard the front bumper of the RS Racing at Yellow 222. And the South African driver right now, well, he's very familiar with Paul Goffin. All these drivers have known each other for years in this series, and therefore that familiarity really does make this a true gentleman's racing series, whereby they all respect each other as best as possible. And when things do go wrong, it's not as though they don't go wrong, to be fair. When they do go wrong, normally is a civil conversation and everyone understands what they could have done better, and in fact no malice was meant. And we've seen that all the way through the season. There's been some absolutely incredible and respectful racing as man gets very close. And well, right now I can imagine the 222 driver, he's got so much pace to unleash. They all have. He just wants to get through, but right now there's just no way through, because Lee Berridge just really dictating the pace of this group, and he's allowing the top 3 of the AM class to just gradually walk away off into the distance here, as the RS Racing yellow driver right now in that 222 is probably thinking to himself, how on earth do I find my way through? Well, the only thing you can do is come into the pits and hope that's going to be enough to essentially undercut the whole group, because there's not going to be a split in this field right now, although Kim Such does fall back a little bit here. But again, I think this is just a natural bob and weave, the seesaw essentially of this pack, and therefore nobody's really showing any strengths and weaknesses, although Such will want to get a little bit closer here as he starts to fall away, just because if he doesn't stay close, he could actually relegate himself and Carwadine to fighting over 15th place rather than being contenders for 10th overall. But whilst all this has been happening, we have had a change in the fight for 7th overall. This is Ben Idris Abdullahi, who has moved ahead of Mark Johnson. But how did he get it done? Here's the replay. So this was coming over Clay Hill and into Watertower, and well, if he was any closer at that point, he would have been reached out and touched the rear wing. Looked into Druid's Bend, and Johnson went a bit deep there, quite obligingly, I think, to let the Ford Mustang go. And I think Johnson focused on his race, which is to chase the AM win, which I think is the sensible move to make, and letting the Satellite Racing charge just go forward. Still a bold move there for Idris Abdullahi to get it done to Druid's Bend. Not an easy place to overtake by any means, but makes the magic happen. Back to the front of the field. We do look to the leader still. And as our top 3 make the way through, we'll in fact make that a top 4 because Matthias Tem is now onto the back of this group. Well, you can see it's still Petzelaar, then Reynolds, then Court, then Tem. However, Tem has been brought back in with what is a very strong pace, and also the fact that this group has been fighting. All the battling now has slightly taken a bit of a back foot here as into the pits goes Petzelaar. He decides to pull the first trigger, and well, in behind us got Tem. Fury Simsport can choose to do this, of course. They have 2 drivers inside this top 4, and there's one at the front of the field and one at the back of it. So Tem is going to do whatever the man in front of him is going to do. That's a smart call there from Matthias Tem. But what is going on meanwhile between the 2 up the road? Well, Reynolds and Core right now, they will carry on. But understandably, this is where the undercut versus the overcut becomes a big question. Who's made the right call? Is it to stay out or is it to come on in? And meanwhile, well, we've got more drivers opted to come in. We've only got very limited numbers staying out. So I think that's the fuel saving, where everyone has pushed their fuel tanks to the maximum and nobody has wanted to come out of the pack. That's interesting. Only those who've been able to save an extra lap of fuel, I suspect, have actually decided to go longer. Otherwise, it has really been run it until the fuel tank goes dry. And we'll see Petzelaar and Tem back out there. Practically identical pit stops, but in the end, the delta in the pit lane has been, well, it's been negligible. In fact, the gap is at 1.3 seconds, and Tem right now practically coming out where he was behind Petzelaar, albeit you have to add 2 cars into that mid, and that's how you join the dots back together with that pack of 4 from earlier. Meanwhile, further back, Dennis Van Beelen, hold up a second, he's come back out here ahead of Idris Abdullahi. That's to be expected. Mark Johnson, meanwhile, makes his way past Andy Marsden, who's parked up there on the side of the road. I think Marsden's run out of fuel for that to happen, and I'm not 100% certain that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. If so, that's a bit of a strategic error, but indeed it happens to the best of us. And right now, I think all these drivers could say at some point in their sim racing career they have run out of fuel in a race by complete accident. But right now, make no mistake, this is no accident. This is a change of Mustangs. This is 8th place, swapping hands with Idris Abdullahi powering his way on past Van Beelen, and Van Beelen here, respect to the fact the pro driver, he is looking quicker now, and I think Idris Abdullahi is looking to pick his way through this AM group to get himself right back into the fight with all the pros. I think the pace is now starting to come along. Into the pits has come Reynolds, in has come Core and Bailiff. Lee Berridge as well, he's yet to pit, and Carwadine will be coming in very shortly behind him, surely then, and indeed he does. I think he has a second thought about it and then realised he can't go any further. They're all in, but where is Petzelaar? Here he is. We look to the blimp camera, and as he makes his way onwards, where's Reynolds? There he is to the pit limiter line. He's just crossed it. He's going to build up some speed. Petzelaar's on the left of your pitch there, trying to go around all the way through turn number 1. They're practically going to be equal, but the change has happened. Stuart Reynolds has taken the lead on strategy as they make the way down towards turn number 3. Reynolds is now the leader of this group, but Petzelaar's right behind him with Niels Court, Matthias Tem, all there together. Well, in the end, the overcut has slightly worked out ahead of the undercutters inside this top 4 at least, but here comes Petzelaar immediately right now. There's nothing in it as they make the way in towards Island Bend, and then he squeezes ahead just ahead of Reynolds there. I think could have turned it a bit earlier, but he decided not to risk it to this early stage. And well, right now, we still got over the half of the race to go. This battle is absolutely brilliant. You could not make this up. There's no script to this. This is a top 4 right now who are absolutely locked in. They're all dialed in and equal to each other, and they're all giving it every bit of energy they've got here to end the season on a high. Everybody wants this final win of the season. Everybody wants to give Season 7 the send-off they want it to have, but right now, all 4 of these drivers are not able to find an upper hand versus the other. As people Matthias Tem, he slides loose there in towards Knickerbrook corner. The rear left tyre just goes to the grass there as he cuts into the bend, and in there it's going to cost him a huge amount of time. That's going to put the best part of 10 seconds back. And Matthias Tem makes a mistake. John Bailiff, the AM leader, comes up and sees what's going on, and he's going to make his way through here as Tem right now gives him the space to do so, only for a brief moment, and then we'll defend on the inside into Druids. This might put Bailiff back slightly towards Idris Abdullahi, and Idris Abdullahi right now absolutely on a mission here to try and catch up as quickly as he can. He's bringing Van Beelen and Johnson along for the ride as well, so right now the battle for the AM win isn't over yet. Bailiff has got to try and control this a little bit more, because that gap is not going anywhere quick. But meanwhile, what about that fight for 4th place that we've been keeping an eye on in the AM class, or 10th overall? Well, here's the update on it, and what we've seen is that pack of what was 7 cars has now actually started to split a little bit as a result of the pit stops, with Berridge and Sharp at the head of it. Paul Goffin, meanwhile, and Heinz Mayer enjoying a bit of a battle. Oliver Carwadine, meanwhile, he's got ahead of both of them, and he has actually picked up quite a bit of steam as a result of it. But Ryan Petty as well has pulled away to the distance, so it looks though they've gone from a 7-car pack into what is groups of 2s and 1s. And well, Kim Such at the very back there. Right now in the number 29, the 10th place and runner at this point. We figured out what's the next possibility he can do in this race, and I think he is just trying to see if he can close up to the two in front of him that are definitely fighting. As Goffin and Mayer right now enjoyed a good old ding-dong scrap, and well, goes very deep, does Goffin. He puts the brakes on there, respect to the fact he's never going to make the corner unless he understeers onto the grass, and Goffin gives up the place there to Heinz Mayer, just under a bit of pressure into Cascades, and in the end making that small mistake, and Mayer takes the place. And here's a look back at that, and also we're going to take a look back shortly after what happened to Matthias Tem. So this was on board with Heinz Mayer at the time for Oris Racing Yellow. Went away into the braking zone, and well, Goffin broke very late there, and I think hitting that bump in the road just caused him to understeer wide, and Mayer taking that very quickly. But then this happened to Matthias Tem just beforehand, ladies and gentlemen, and this was Tem for Fury Simsport making his way on through the chicane. As he did so, watch the left-hand side of the car, he puts the rear left tyre onto the grass, and that's what causes the rear to lose traction. The grip goes, and with the rear of the car goes round, and that's what's relegated him now back into fourth place and firmly a long way back from that battle. However, do not rule him out, because he is 8 seconds off of that lead group, and I can tell you one thing, if they fight at any point, that 8 seconds is going to very quickly be slashed in half, because battling around here at Oulton Park, it will cost a huge amount of time. There's no question about it. But from these drivers then, as we do look to Lee Berridge back on your live screens, and we can see Berridge and Sharp still together here. The top three of the AM class have slightly moved away, but right now they are all still holding it together very nicely in this battle. Although Berridge, I can imagine right now, he's probably thinking to himself, what do I have to do to shake off the Porsche and the BMW behind me? Well, I don't know, Lee. I don't think anybody knows right now other than go faster. But the problem is, I think he's driving at the absolute limit he can within the realms of his strategy. And Sharp and Petty, again, really right now coming into elements of their own here as we ride on board with the front bumper camera of Penny's number 99. And he's a bit further back compared to the two in front of him. However, this gives him some really good visibility and also gives him the opportunity to get perhaps a bit more involved in the battle should the two in front really start to knock each other around. Well, then what he can think to himself is, okay, there's an opportunity here, I can go for it. But I think what the Englishman's trying to do at this point is he's trying to hold the gap at around 6 to 8 temps. He doesn't want to get any closer than that, and he doesn't want to get any further away from that, so that way he can do some fuel saving, but also he's not running as close to the hot air that's coming off the back of the two cars. Remember, these GT4s, they are 80% road car, 20% race car. They are based on road cars, which have had all the interior stripped out for the most part, but they are running the same engines, or what is essentially sports enhanced engines, of the cars they are based on the road, such as the BMW M4 G82. So the idea is here essentially the fact that these cars, they are big, they are bulky, they're not too aerodynamic to find, they cut a huge box through the air in front of them, and well, if you're the car further behind, you gain a lot on the straights, but you lose out considerably in the corners, as Petty does there, making a bit of a mistake at Druids Bend, so he falls back a little bit further. And Lee Berridge right now, well, I think he'll be hoping that he can now start to make this what is just a two-way fight for fourth place. However, Rob Sharp is still there with it. I think Sharp's big game plan is just ride the rear of the man for as long as he can, and in the end, perhaps make the jump in the second pit stop, because all the pit stop times were practically equal on the first pit stop. Nobody really having an outlier. They were all anywhere between what was 19.4 seconds to 20.1 seconds. The only real outlier in the pit stops was John Bailiff, where 19.23 second stop, the quickest stop of all of them. And I can imagine that Bailiff has perhaps had an opportunity to do a little bit of fuel saving by comparison, but otherwise it has been practically even between all these drivers, and therefore it's the second pit stop which I think is going to be the deciding factor in terms of who's done enough and who has not. But back to the lead of group we come. This is overall, and pro lead with it. Pentelar, Reynolds and Core with a 9-second gap now to Matthias Tem, who's fallen back a little bit further, understandably because of the power of the draft between all these cars. And right now for Matthias Pentelar, his game plan has got to be just control this. He got the lead back, albeit he lost out in the pit stop strategy, and that's important information that Reynolds will need. As will Pentelar, they'll now be both thinking, okay, in Pentelar's case, how do I stop that from happening a second time? And well, one of the answers is he leaves the lead. He goes to second place or even to third. Now, it sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out on this one. Reynolds right now, running behind, he can save fuel. He can save some tyres as well. What's happened in the pit lane is that Reynolds, in fact, has spent a bit longer in the pits by comparison, but I would imagine that's to take on some extra fuel so he doesn't have to do it as much in the final stop. Because, of course, these cars do have limited fuel tanks, but the more fuel you can take into each stint and keep on the race pace, the better. You can shorten the later pit stops by comparison, or you can make the next stint a bit longer. And by comparison, Matthias Petzler does not have as much strategic flexibility by comparison, as Reynolds gets a bit closer here once again. So therefore, for Petzler, he's got to try and take control of this. And one way you could do so is essentially you lose the place. You don't try to make it look intentional, but you do intentionally do it. But then that comes with its own risk factor, which is, are you comfortable running behind another car, knowing that if your strategy does not work out, suddenly you've given up the lead of the race and you've got to get it back later. So it cuts both ways, of course, the strategy. Some drivers, their self-confidence is that high that they're confident they can do it. Other drivers, meanwhile, it's nowhere near as easy, and that is, of course, the challenge that they all face, is the fact they do need to be very smart with when exactly they do go for those opportunities versus when they do not, and when it's the right time to lead and when it's the right time to be the second place man. But for Matthias Petzler, the flying fin, as we refer to him, he definitely right now wants to fly the banner high at the front of the field, and I don't think second place is in his vocabulary at all today. I think it's first or nothing here, and well, I don't blame him for that. Through the corner he comes, and as he does so, of course, also chasing down what will be his first win of the season, if I do remember correctly, in the fact that we have had, well, it's 3 wins for Stuart Reynolds. We've had 1 win for none other than Dries van Langendonk. We've also had what has been 2 wins for Alex Gall, and we've also had a win for Daniel Parent-Smith, and that's how you add up to what is your grand total of 7 wins over the season. And right now we still have the question mark of who is going to be your 8th race winner overall. And well, I think Matthias Petzler would love to put his name on that list in what has been a highly competitive field. But meanwhile, we come back to the battle here between Berridge and Sharp. They're still going at it, enjoying a good old scrap as we briefly are losing Brian Penny. Hopefully that's not a sign of something to come for Penny, but if so, well, that's going to be a turn and a twist of the tail, as Penny right now trying to stay in this race. There he is in the Oris Digital Racing Red machine, and well, it's still running in 12th place at the moment, at least 6th in the AM class, but he is having some connectivity issues. Hopefully that's not a sign of something to come with the engine of the car. It'd be the equivalent of what would be an engine blowout. We will see, as Heinzman, Oliver Carwadine, the 2 teammates there behind him, continue to fight each other, and Paul Goffin and Kim Sucher falling back just that little bit further. But there's more to come in this race, surely, and well, there may be some drama yet, as all these drivers continue to push onwards, and we will see what is to come next. As for Dennis Van Beelen and Mark Johnson, well, they've lost Idris Abdullahi. The satellite racing driver has pulled ahead, and I do believe, at the moment at least, if the results were to finish as they currently stand in terms of the race, you would see satellite racing become your team's champions provisionally, and you would see John Bailiff be your AM champion. And as for what is the overall drivers' championship, it would go to Stuart Reynolds as things stand. That's a quick update there, relatively straightforward update. We'll keep you apprised of that should there be any notable changes. Although right now anything can change at any moment, and Oulton Park Giveth, it does take it away as well, as we do see Van Beelen trying to run away from Johnson. But to the credit of Johnson right now, he's enjoyed a very strong race as we ride aboard the dashboard here of the Track Mouse Racing driver, and as he goes around the lap, well, his intentions are to close up to Van Beelen. But this McLaren has been a bit of an odd car over the course of the season, as Alex Gall put it at Circuit Zandvoort. Zandvoort was the circuit that confirmed to him that it definitely was the right car to pick up during the course of the season. Why is that? Well, it's the car that definitely trends the line between power and cording. But hold the phone on that, because meanwhile Rob Sharp up the inside there, Lee Berridge, he finds the space. Berridge decides to take to the grass, bounces his way back onto circuit, and in the end he will have to give up the position there. He can't fight for it after that, and Rob Sharp finally finds a way past. He moves into 4th place in the AM class, but right now I don't think this is over yet, because we look back for the rear of the Aburis Racing 86. Well, right now he'll be pretty much wheeling the car. Please run away, get away, don't let the Mustang get any closer. And then the fast left-hander of Island Bend will definitely have the ability to try and do that, but under braking here into Shoals Bend, this is where now he's going to need the best possible exit, because that Mustang, once it gets the power down, it will come absolutely roaring on. And with these cars having the best part of around 400 brake horsepower, well, it's a slightly detuned set of engines here, but right now you can imagine that Mustang will be building gap as they made the way past what was Britain's was 4 tenths. But by the time they get to the braking zone here for Hislops, the gap stays at 4 tenths. I would imagine that, in fact, Berridge there has decided not to attack it, but instead fuel save here. I wonder whether now that he's behind Sharp, he's thinking to himself, you know what, the fuel gauge is not looking as promising as perhaps it was when I was up front. I might as well let the man go and instead just focus on essentially tucking him behind him and conserving some fuel. Albeit Sharp, of course, might now have the better tyres as well. And tyre life is always a big conundrum around here at any circuit, but Oulton Park, there is a lot of loading on what's the left-hand side tyres. Will it be the clockwise circuit? But from then, we have to leave them behind, ladies and gentlemen, because we come back to the overall lead. And, well, we've seen this many a time, but this is for the third time now. The Tantalisingly go defensive versus Reynolds in this race in towards Island Bend. Onto the brakes they go. Nils Core still watching. He is literally like a vulture waiting to pounce. He's waiting to see what's the scraps left over out of this one. That's your top three, but this fighting is immediately having an effect from Matthias Tem. Now, Tem, before they started fighting on this lap, was 9 seconds behind. He's now 8.7 seconds back. That's 3 temps in the space of 1 quarter. And Reynolds right now going for it here. And, well, I don't think it's to bring Tem in. It will, as a result, bring Tem in, but I think Reynolds just wants this lead off for him now, if he can, as we get closer towards the end of the second stint. If we base it on the first stint, we're expecting our second and final strategy pit stops of the day to come in somewhere in the region around 22 to what is 18 minutes remaining. That is the target window for the drivers. Some will try and go longer and try and push it to what will be about 15 minutes remaining, depending on the circuit and fuel consumption. We have seen some incredible use of the strategy this season where some have been able to get it to about 12 minutes remaining, but of course it has required a lot of sipping of the fuel tank, and it's not always easy. Of course, right now, the BMW driver who we jump aboard with, he's still in amongst all this fighting, but as he makes his way across the timeline, wipers on there. It's not because it's raining. Well, hopefully not, because I was going to say, if we have got rain, then where are the clouds with it? That's just to get the debris off the windscreen there. Essentially, some stone chips that have gone up, bits of gravel. You can see some flying up there. Let's go off for the grass, as we have had Tantalisingly go slightly wide, but here comes Reynolds looking up the inside. It's Cascade. That's going to get a little bit messy there for both drivers. They push each other offline, and well, no contact made, but both drivers there getting under each other's skin, and Core immediately just backing off entirely. Nils Core right now can tell you, the satellite racing driver, he is really good at observing all this, and that's not to be sarcastic. The way he knows and he's anticipating what's going on with the two drivers in front, he's able to maintain such a nice gap to them. I think in this second pit stop, if he doesn't get out ahead of them, well, that is going to be a shock there, or I think he's going to be right in the midst of them when we do go into that final stint. I think right now Nils Core is getting ready to spring the biggest surprise of the season on these two, and he just needs to wait what will be about another 5 to 6 minutes before we really see it come about. He's showing no signs of wanting to get involved right now, but he's staying right there with them. Of course, he is having to drive on the limit to be able to do this, but I just imagine that he's giving himself a bit of a strategic advantage here. You've got to hope so, and that's how he made things work at the Red Bull Ring. He stayed in the lead pack for the entire race and just did not let, in the end, himself get drawn into the fight, and that's how he made it an incredible run to the podium. Stuart Reynolds had run off with the race lead early on, but after that it was really anybody else's game for the podium, and Nils Core played the game perfectly there. And right now, well, we'll have to see what he can do, because of course that result last time out being what was a very solid run to the podium. He's yet to take a win this season. He's been on the third step of the podium, he's been on the second step of the podium, but he wants to be on the top step at least one time. But we will see where he's going to be able to dine on it or not, as they all roar the way around, coming up towards what will be turn number 2. And as they do, well, right now, Tantalisingly, Reynolds and Core, they are literally glued nose to tail, as Reynolds takes another cheeky look, but he just can't find it. Further back again, well, the Rob Sharp Lee Berridge battle has actually spaced out a little bit, and if anything, Berridge is now starting to slip back into the hands of Ryan Penny. Interesting. I wonder then if Berridge has perhaps started to cook his tyres a little bit, or whether the fuel load's not looking good. He goes very deep there at Lodge Bend. He brings it back together, but the attitudes of the car there said that it got deep and actually had to pull the car back into the middle of the road in order to straighten it out. Berridge may be struggling with tyre life at the moment because he is falling back, and Sharp is now pulling on. We know the Porsche is quite light on its tyres. It is rather lighter of our GT4s, and car weight does have a significant effect on the tyre life. But meanwhile, well, Tantalisingly going defensive versus Reynolds in towards the chicane, and he gets it wrong. Tantalisingly in the end sees Reynolds go wide there to avoid making contact, and here comes Core. Core's going to go up the inside, and a small mistake for Matthias Tantalisingly has big repercussions as we get towards the end of what we 40 minutes of racing, and suddenly Reynolds takes the lead, causes to second, and Matthias Tantalisingly falls to third place. But will he immediately respond now? Surely that's got to be the gambit. He's got to come into the pits and fix himself right, mentally reset, get the tyres cooled down, and then go back out there. Or does he ride the back of this pack and just simply ride the stream of strategy? Well, either way right now, that could be a costly mistake here. And Reynolds at this point, well, the Fury Sinsport team, there's going to be a bit of jubilation down the pit lane because the man trying to make it 4 wins in a row and really be the king of the second half of the season, if not your champion as well. Well, right now for Reynolds, he's got an open road in front of him. Can he use it as he gets ready towards the end of the second stint? Can he use it to bolt away a little bit? Can he put some time and distance between himself and the cars behind? Or is Nils Core now going to be the man that everybody will be raising an eyebrow at and wondering when exactly is that satellite racing BMW M4 going to get involved in this fight? Because right now it has been a bystander, it has been a watcher, an observer. Core has been there constantly, but he has never played a role in in this, but surely he's got to play a role at some point. He can't be a secondary actor for the whole of this race, unless, of course, he's right his limit right now, and that's just what he's able to do is stay with them. There's nothing wrong with that, to be fair, because that is a phenomenal performance in its own, the number 15 driver. But Heinz Mayer is into the pit lane, so there's the first of our second stops. He makes his way on down, and right now we'll wait to see who else comes in here as Ryan Petty stays out. Oliver Carmodine's right behind him, so Mayer's teammate now going on a move to try and get ahead of the sister team car from Digital Racing Red for Oris. And also back the way out of the corner. Well, Carmodine here trying to put the pressure onto Petty, who looks so strong in the first into the race, but I can imagine Tyre Life is going against him like it is for Berridge, and this might be the deciding factor for so many of these drivers of the M-Class. Are the tyres still in a good state of affairs? But as he roars his way in towards the next braking zone, well, Goffin's behind him such as well. And then we do have a bit of size. We get back to John Roberts, who is lonesome. He's in 10th place in the M-Class right now, 16th overall, but he's still looking to give it his all as Heinz Mayer makes his way out of the pit lane. He falls to 17th place. He's lost the runs on the lead lap, and the one car that's not on the lead lap as Mayer gets it wrong. Mayer goes out wide there at Cascades. He brings it back on, but that's a big mistake there for Heinz Mayer. That's going to cost him a lot of time. That's going to cost him the best part of 3-4 seconds. Well, it's a critical error. Meanwhile, Ryan Penny's had a mistake there from what I'm hearing in my ear. What is the Hislop chicane? Some mistakes are coming now for drivers as they get towards this critical juncture, and I think everyone's just pushed so hard for so long in this race that right now, well, the grip levels are going, and as the sun also sets here at Oulton Park, quite poetic, I would say, given the fact that we are sunsetting on the season. Well, right now, oh my goodness, that is Ryan Penny. Ryan Penny's off the road again at Druids, and after getting his grass on his tyres once, well, at Druids, Penny adds even more to it. Well, right now, he won't quite have a greenhouse on his tyres, but I can tell you that is not good news. Those tyres right now are not going to absolutely enjoy that whatsoever, and for Ryan Penny, he's going to need to get them cooled out as much as he can. But as he makes his way in, well, immediately he does so, and then we look to what is your leader, Stuart Reynolds. And Reynolds right now, we've still got Core with it, but Matthias Pentelar has fallen away from these two. I think Pentelar might just be trying to regroup as best he can. And here's a quick replay to explain what exactly happened to the RD Simsport driver when it all went slightly wrong. So it was over the rise they went, and down the hilltop they came, and as they went onto the brakes, Reynolds on the outside, Pentelar on the inside, under brake, and he just outbroke himself there, Pentelar, and had to quickly pull the car to the right to avoid hitting the tyre barrier, and well, in the end did well to do so, but bounced onto the apex curb. It's quite a high curb, and that may have shaken him around a little bit, but that was the mistake there. Reynolds just putting him under that mental pressure, and finally making an error as a result of it. We then had this for what was Ryan Penny only moments later. And it was essentially at the same corner a lap later as he made his way down to the braking zone. Penny went onto the anchors, and as he did so, just went straight on. Unfortunately, missed his braking zone whilst battling there. An easy mistake to make under that pressure for Oliver Carwadine, and in the end, everyone being released on through. And as he made his way up the hill, well, we saw the aftermath, which was him going wide at Druids Bend as we come back to your live racing. But as they all head onwards, well, we do have a question there from Lewis Gilbert in the YouTube chat asking, are most drivers based in the European time zone? Indeed, this series is run from what is the UK time zone and European time zones. All the drivers you do see here, I do believe, hail from what is European countries, but we'd never say no to having presence from anywhere around the world, whether it be from Japan all the way to the US of A. And indeed, well, we'll tell you a little bit more later today about the upcoming Season 8, what we do know, and also potentially the prospect of an upcoming event or two in preparation for it. But as all drivers head on through, well, we've got some pit stops coming on through now live on your screens. In fact, they've been completed. Dennis Van Beelen, he's made his final stop of the day. So has Mark Johnson, who comes out right behind him, but the gap between the two has opened up by a further 1.5 seconds. Johnson having a longer pit stop in a McLaren that seems to be quite thirsty on fuel. Rob Sharp, he makes his way on down for the final time, and as he does so, comes off the limiter, and well, very nicely as John Roberts makes his way around. But remember that Roberts has yet to take his second pit stop, so you're going to see Sharp just get ahead of Roberts. That's going to be an important moment because of the fact he won't be held up necessarily by a man who has got to pit once again. Further back, well, ooh, that's very close coming out the pit lane as Ryan Penny goes around to complete what was his tour of the circuit, but Penny gets ahead of Goffin and such, and their stops are complete. So right now, the only pit stops we're waiting for, really, are those of your top 8, but Reynolds and Pentelar, they are both into the pit lane, and Niels Core, meanwhile, goes another lap. This could be the moment then for Niels Core. Can he go longer than anybody else, and can he lead the race to the end, or will he find himself embroiled in the strategy stakes all the way to the end? But indeed it is looking as though right now Stuart Reynolds, if regardless of whatever happens, he is looking to be the favourite for the Drivers' Championship crown here in the absence of Alex Gull on the grid. And indeed, wherever he finishes inside this top 3 at the moment, it doesn't matter. He will be your champion because he will collect the 4 points he needs to be able to get the job done. Meanwhile, Matthias 10 makes his way out to the pit lane, and he's looking to try and find a bit of salvation in chasing down Reynolds and Pentelar. The gap between him and them is the best part of 8 seconds at the moment. We will see. There's not long left. 15 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap. Jake Cranstone services himself for the final time as he makes one out in the Master of the Torque Machine. And right now, as he builds the power up, he comes out behind Dennis Van Beelen. But to be fair, he's going to enjoy a bit of a battle here with the 4 Mustang driver. He's been enjoying this for a good part of the day. And well, they're going to resume the battle that has carried on since the very start. As they make the way onwards, where you see Mark Johnson just behind, and then it's quite a bit of a gap to Rob Sharp, as there are fights everywhere, both strategy and on track. But we're waiting to see how they all fit back together on the tarmac. But to your leader then, Nils Core. Is he only going to go 1 extra lap, or is he going to perhaps put 2 on the board? Either way right now, the fact he's been able to go longer has been testament to what he's been doing, and he does come into the pit, so he goes 1 lap extra. And now here we go then. Is he going to be coming out as your leader come the end of this? John Bailiff has done the same as well. Here comes the winner of Bidit Racing driver. And right now, well, all he needs to do is get this pit stop absolutely nailed on. In fact, John Bailiff going another lap here. So he's going to try and go 2 extra compared to what is the majority of the field. Bailiff right now, well, if he saved enough fuel to do so, credit to him, but I think it's risky. Here's Core waiting to leave his pit stop. Where is Reynolds? Here comes Reynolds over Dearleaf, and as he makes his way on, Core leaving the pit lane here, but I don't think Nils Core's done enough. He certainly has not when Stuart Reynolds is already through turn number 1, and he's off into the distance. And right now, Stuart Reynolds can hear what is the call of a championship crowd calling to him, and he's running after it. And Nils Core, in the end, in a surprise twist, comes out behind. But where has he lost the time in the pit lane? And the answer is, it's in the transition time between it coming into the pits and leaving it. It's not in the stop. He had the quicker stop by a whole second compared to Reynolds. However, when he's made his way into and out of the pit lane, the time has been lost. And that's the delta there for Nils Core. It's just not been the smoothest of pit stops end to end, and he's suddenly lost out. However, Matthias Pentelar is a lot further back. Understandably, I think, in the fact that after what's happened, he's got to try and get himself regrouped here. But right now, your top 3 have separated the best part of 4 seconds between all 3 cars. So that battle may be over, but we'll see, because then again, never say it's over till it's over. As this championship has proven time and time again that the battles can run all the way to the finish, even if it doesn't look like it. But meanwhile, further down, well, if we don't see much entertainment from the pro drivers for at least a moment, we will see it from our AM drivers, as Paul Goffin right now finds himself caught up behind a BMW pack. And as he makes his way down towards turns 2 and 3, we're right on board here with the SRM Black driver, who right now, the 164 Porsche, he's got all the speed of the corners, of course, but versus those BMWs, what has he got to beat them with their 6-cylinder machinery on the straight? And the answer is perhaps not too much, as John Bailiff in the end does come in for his final pit stop. Here goes the longest of everybody on that second stint. Credit to him where it's due for doing it, but he is going to have to take that pit stop, and I believe this will put him back out in what will be 5th place overall. But focusing on what we're seeing on our screens here, as Penny and Such, the 2 Oris Digital racing teammates on the red counterpart, well, they're both right now pushing each other onwards, and Goffin here, well, he's got all the speed in those corners, but as soon as he gets into these long acceleration zones, you can just see the Porsche just does not have an answer here to the straight line speed of the BMW, and we really have had the cars form into 2 groups this season, the Porsche, or the handling car, and then everything else. Okay, joking aside, we've also had the McLaren prove itself to be a very capable handling car, but it has had some straight line speed prowess, but then the BMWs, the Mercedes and the Fords have been the monsters on the straight, and the Aston Martin, which hasn't been a popular pick for this season, we've only seen 1 or 2 drivers venture into it at the very start of the season. They're no longer with us, sadly. Well, the Aston Martin definitely just a bit of a outlier car. It hasn't been the car to use, but Paul Goffin gets a really good run coming out of what is Druid's bed, and immediately there, well, if you're going to have a slow exit like that, Kim Such is going to experience what happens when the Porsche is absolutely dialed in, and Goffin there makes the move count. He makes it stick. His next target, Ryan Petty for 8th place, the AM class here, and well, if he can make it as quick as that, he may just have some magic on his hands. But you can see there, Such looking back to the inside. It's not going to work as Goffin takes that place and he tries to make it his own. We come to Matthias Tem, and meanwhile, for all what is the chase that he's trying to put on against the top three, he's got some company, but it's behind him instead, and it's John Bailiff right now, who is 9 tenths behind him, and Bailiff have made that second pit stop, the shortest pit stop of anybody for their second pit stop of only 12.25 seconds stationary. Bailiff has done an incredible job of the strategy to make this work, and I get the feeling right now Bailiff has really been managing this race as much as he's been managing the lead all the way through, and you could say that has really been one of the definitions of his season when he's been on winning form, in the fact that at certain points he's been under a huge amount of pressure to take those wins. None more so, of course, but he didn't quite get the win at Le Mans versus Van Beelen, but also later on in the season where he's picked up some of his wins, where he's just been able to really manage the races and manage a gap, and he's only been at certain points a lap 2 to 3 tenths faster in qualifying, and it's translated to 1 to 2 tenths faster over the race, but he's been able to maintain that pace advantage, and that's what's made him your leading AM all the way through. Albeit we saw, of course, at Circuit Zandvoort, where it went wrong for everybody in the AM class. No driver at Circuit Zandvoort. If you didn't get a chance to watch that broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, definitely go back and check it out. You'll find that in the AM class, the time tower in the end, it was shaken, it was stirred, it was turned upside down so many times in the AMs, and in the end, Bailiff was the one who made the least mistakes, everybody, at the tricky Dutch circuit. But that's what he's had. He's had resilience, he's had pace, and he's also had strategic smarts. He's just the complete package here as he makes his way towards what will be his maiden and indeed the first ever AM titleship crown. But as he chases after Tem, I think he wants a little bit more, and he wants to try and guarantee as well his spot inside the top 10 of the overall championship, which will be a huge achievement to add to it. But meanwhile, Paul Goffin here, well, he's had one BMW, he's going to have another one as he makes his way down to 2 and then into 3. And try to look around the outside here. Well, you don't normally look around the outside of Cascade, but you know it's Paul Goffin in a Porsche. You're going to go for it either way as he makes one out with the SRO Black driver, definitely keeping us entertained. As Ryan Petty, meanwhile, you can see they're putting the car one way then the other, and I think just suddenly waking up behind the wheel and realise, my good lord, that Porsche is incredibly quick on the corners, and it's giving Goffin all the confidence. But in towards Shell as he goes, and as he does, just rides the rear here as they're coming out, and Goffin right now, he knows he's not going to be able to do anything at this point. He's just going to have to sit there, wait, watch and listen as they power the way along. With the SRO Black driver from the United Kingdom, well, he comes over the crest and down, well, his game plan, of course, will be, as soon as he gets beyond this chicane, he's then got to absolutely attack every corner to the start-finish line. And, well, he'll start to build himself up now as he comes through his lots in towards Knickerbrook corner. You can see there the body language of the cars. Goffin's just able to point the car in much more aggressively with that mid-engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain, where it gives him the rear rotation. Through Clay Hill to Water Tower. A bit far back at about half a second, but Druids Bend is where he's the strongest out of these cars, and will take some very tight entry line there, but look at the momentum he carries out. That's 2 tenths in that corner alone. They drop Kim Such for the time being, and now in towards Lodge Corner. Does Goffin go all in? Not quite. He stays with his racing line, as we do have Andy Marston into the pit lane out the quality booth window for his second pit stop of the day. Albeit I think he has picked up a black flag for speeding into the pit lane, and well, the SRM Black driver, things have gone slightly backwards, but to be fair, he's still out there giving it his all. But as Goffin that makes one to another lane, you see Penny there gliding sideways. The oversteer in that BMW become more and more prominent as the pressure builds, but right now Goffin not quite able to get as close as he did as quickly with Kim Such. But this is one of the 2 battles that's out there at the moment. That's in a second. We'll keep an eye on these as Oliver Carwadine chases after. Well, in fact, that's going to be Carwadine letting Heinz Mann go there. So I wonder whether Carwadine, where they've been on the radio to each other, Carwadine did have a significantly shorter stop by comparison. And I wonder whether perhaps he's not put as much fuel in the car as he should have there. As in the end, well, Mayer's made his way back on for I think a bit of teamwork going on here to try and make sure they can get both cars to the finish line and make sure they both finish with some good points in hand, given this will be 12th and 13th place overall. So be some quite critical points in what's the battle for the second half of the top 10 in the Teams Championship, but also for both drivers here, it will be a nice end to the season to finish together and make sure both cars get to the finish line. Of course, both drivers want to beat each other. They, as the number 1 rule of motorsport says, it is beat your teammate. The number 2 rule is don't take your teammate out of the race. Alternatively, you could also say make sure you help your teammate when needed. And well, right now they're both doing exactly that, working together, and we've seen this all season between the 2 of them, to be fair. And well, it has definitely one of those seasons whereby for the Oris Racing Digital yellow cars, well, they've grown, and we look forward to next season where I suspect they'll be definitely chasing the top 5s on a regular basis in the AM class, if not podiums. But as we do have only a few minutes left now, only 6 minutes left on the clock, well, we look back to Goffin versus Penny. And, well, Paul Goffin this time, he's had a monster run through Dearly. He's going to look around the outside here, and Penny has to go defensive. And you can see the Porsche immediately cut back on the apex there. In fact, cutting back a bit too efficiently, I would say, for Goffin. I think he surprised himself the fact he's just mounted the entirety of what is the apex curve of the Old Hall. And we'll come on down the hill here. That's cost him a bit of momentum. Through the left-hander he goes at turn number 3. Well, he's going to build all the momentum coming out of Cascades right now. But again, a long straight, that will neutralise the two cars in terms of the gain and loss as they come through in towards Island Bend. But back and forth between these two, it has really been a seesaw between them all the way through the race. Indeed, it has been between several drivers, but looking back to your leader right now, well, Stuart Reynolds at the moment, he'll be thinking to himself, another lap on the board, he's on to lap 34, and at this rate of knots, well, given the amount of time we've got remaining, and an average lap time of just shy of 1 minute 40, you do the quick mental mathematics, and that does mean we have got 3 more laps to go, including this one perhaps, or maybe 3 more on top of that. It's going to be quite close to see how many we get. Either way right now for Stuart Reynolds, well, it's 3 more or so laps to see where's that final finish line, and with it the Season 8 title. And to be fair to him, even in the absence of Alex Gall today, he has not had an easy run of it, in the fact that he has been pushed every step of the way by Niels Core, firstly, the man who has been silent in the battles, and he's been the one who's tried to be the smartest on strategy, but it hasn't quite worked out. But he's definitely one hurdle to overcome. Then we've had this man, Matthias Pentelar, who was absolutely going all in to try and hold on to a lead until he made a mistake under braking just towards the end of the second stint, where he outbroke himself in the battle with Reynolds in towards the Hislop chicane, and that was the decider, at least, in how they're running right now. But there still could be mistakes to be made. It's not over yet as he makes his way on through, and he'll be hoping, like anybody right now, there's a bit of lady luck on his side that he may be able to get more involved in this. But Reynolds, of course, will be just keeping his eye on one thing at a time, and that is complete every corner, get the braking zones absolutely right. And also, let's not rule out the fact that Stuart Reynolds did also have the pressure of his own teammate from Fury Simsport, Matthias Tem, who was looking to get on the front row of him, couldn't quite do so, and a spin coming all the way through Knickerbrook Court at the midpoint of the race is what put him out of the running for the top 3, but he definitely was looking to be somebody who was eager for the win as well, and he trying to make sure that the win stayed in the Fury Simsport family, but potentially he would take 1 to the 3 that Reynolds has had. So there have been so many stories between our top 4, and then meanwhile behind, well, this man right now really has been a bit of an accomplice to what has been that top 4, because here's John Bailiff in 5th place, your AM leader right now, who is looking to be in control for this, and he's not too far away from seeing that finish line. But as he makes way around right now for Bailiff to win it or bid it racing trial, I can tell you one thing, it'd be great to hear a word from him after the race if we can get an interview with him, because he's an absolutely jolly fellow, I can tell you that, and I get the feeling that happiness is going to be absolutely into the stratosphere. But still, don't fear, we've still got some battles out there with 3 minutes and a final lap left to tick. And we see Ryan Penny right now battling with Paul Goffin. Goffin has just found his way past Penny, it should be pointed out. He's actually made the move happen, and well, we'll just see if there's going to be a counter-attack here in towards Lodge Bend. The answer is no, and here's the quick replay to explain how it happened. And intriguingly, this was over hilltop, so Goffin did manage to get close enough in the end, and Penny struggled out of Shell Oil's corner, and then Goffin went absolutely all in here. That was from quite far back under braking, but that is the strength of the Porsche's brakes, where you can afford to do that so long as the driver in front is aware, and Goffin made that look like absolute textbook overtaking there, went all in at Hislops and got the job done. Well done to him for that one. But coming back to your live pictures, it's not over yet, because now Penny's got to try and prove that he can use the prowess of the power of the BMW to get back at Goffin. But it might not be easy as they make way in towards turn 4, given the fact that he's got to get alongside. And, well, there's plenty of space to do so, or thereabouts. It's just about 2 wide is available in these cars. However, he's then got to try and beat the man at corners, and that's where the Porsche is going to be the stronger too. But meanwhile, coming back to Lee Berridge and Heinz Mayer. Well, right now, Lee Berridge, who really was looking so good at one point for 4th place in the AM class today. And, well, midway through the second stint, something clicked and not in the right direction. And we believe it's the tyre degradation for that Mustang. Has just gone against Berridge, and Heinz Mayer has caught up to him. And Mayer right now looking for a way in here as they head towards Druids Bend. These two right now really looking quick as they roar the one around. And right aboard, what is dashboard here of the RS Racing Yellow 222. Royal Mayo right now only has what is this lap, plus I do believe 2 more to try and make something happen, as our leaders are already down towards the Hislop chicane. You can see there, look at the oversteer. It is a struggle here for Lee Berridge, and Mayer's going to look to the inside. He's going to go in as they make the way toward the breakings over turn number 1. And, well, he'll go up the inside initially, but it'll be a compromised exit line here. Berridge isn't going to back off. He's going to squeeze Mayer as much as possible to force him to have to bleed speed. It'll be too wide down into Denton's here. Berridge on your right, Mayer on the left, but Mayer takes way too much curve. And as it goes flying at Denton's, it heads straight into the tyre barrier here at Cascade. And for Heinz Mayer was looking to be his best result of the season. And a top 5 with it. It suddenly all slipped out of his hands. And for Mayer, you've got to feel for him because that car is damaged. The suspension's collapsed. He is not going any further in this one. And right now, he's going to be absolutely fuming with himself after it looked to all be coming together. It suddenly is not. But meanwhile, it's coming together for this man. 1 lap between him and a championship title. Stuart Reynolds right now makes his way out of turn number 1. And as he does so, he's only got another 13 to go. A couple of miles left to run. And next time around, he will see that checkered flag and he will see that provisional Drivers' Championship crown for Season 7 grace his car and indeed him as a driver. But nil score, and still 4 seconds behind, not closing, not losing him either way. And as Corn makes his way in towards turn number 4, my understanding right now, I think he's looking to his rear, making sure that Matthias Pentelar cannot get any closer. As for your AM leader, here is John Bailiff right now, leading comfortably by the best part of what is 14 seconds over Dennis Van Beelen. And Bailiff right now in control as Van Beelen and Johnson. Well, they've been exactly like this pretty much since the opening 10 minutes of the race were completed. There's no delta between them, and they are looking set for their podium finishes. Back to Carbadine versus Berridge. If Mayer has fallen, Berridge right now still trying to hold on for dear life. And, well, coming in towards turn number 1, here comes Carbadine. If Mayer failed, Carbadine's going to try and prove that he could do it instead. And Berridge is trying to hold on. The tyres on that Mustang have gone. He's just absolutely struggling as Lee Berridge right now, but Carbadine is going to find out that Lee Berridge doesn't just roll over and roll out the way as they come down through Cascade. And well, these two drivers continue to battle nose to tail. But meanwhile, we come all the way back to the front of the field. And well, ladies and gentlemen, since the midpoint of the season, he was chasing Alex Gold down. And whilst Gold could not be here tonight, Reynolds still had work to do. 4 wins in a row was the question. The answer is yes, he could do it. And with it, he becomes your provisional Drivers' Champion overall for Season 7 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Championship, ahead of Niels Core, who comes home in 2nd place for Satellite Racing. And then Matthias Pentelar for Arnie Sims, what completes the top 3. Wondering what could have been today if it weren't for that mistake. Meanwhile, Matthias 10 finishes 4th. And behind him, here is your first ever provisional AM champion in the series. It is none other than John Bailiff, who takes what is his 5th win of the season. What a win from him. 5th place overall, ahead of Ben Idris Abdullahi, with Drake Cranstone finishing 7th. And then 2nd place, it is none other, 2nd place NAM that is, it is none other than Dennis Van Beelen, who finishes 8th overall on the road, ahead of Mark Johnson, who finally lifts the curse of bad luck that has beset the Trap Mouse Racing team ever since round number 3. He finally finds the podium. He is chased for round after round. He hasn't given up, and I can imagine he might almost be in tears as he drives that car in its cool-down lap. Rob Sharp comes home 4th in the end, and with that, he will be your 3rd place finisher in the AM Championship behind Dennis Van Beelen, with Lee Berridge in the end coming on home, holding on to 5th place in AM and 11th overall, ahead of Oliver Carwadine. And then it will be Paul Goffin who comes to the line with a sensible 7th place in the end. A solid driver here, battling with the BMWs. He managed to outrun Ryan Penny to the finish, as he did Kim Such, as the RS Racing Digital Red Machines come across the line together, 14th and 15th. And then it will be John Roberts, who very shortly makes his way to the finish line there, with Andy Marston crossing the line as well. Great to see him on camera as he comes on home 5 laps down, but in 18th, he still finished the race. That's what it's all about. And then John Roberts comes home on your lead lap in 16th place, 10th for the AMs. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. What an incredible conclusion to the season. And whilst we may not have had our other primary actor, well, I can tell you one thing, we may have been missing one of our big actors, but we definitely had some stars leap up to the occasion. When Niels Core right now being pushed along, he's run out of fuel in that car, and he is being pushed along by none other than, I think, Dennis Van Beelen is helping him out as best as possible. I think the fuel tanks in these cars are dry, and the engines and the tyres have seen their days for Season 7, but credit where it's due. It has been an incredible season, and Satellite Racing, with 2nd and 6th overall, have taken provisionally the team's championship for this season, as hold up a second, second. How on earth has Matthias Penslar ended up in his roof? I'm not quite sure if he's trying to do a Michael Crease BTCC 2022 tribute there, when the season 5 Crease ended up rolling the car on the roof just before the finishing line. But the Audi Simsport driver has managed to achieve that, and well, Dennis Van Beelen's trying to give him a bit of a nudge there. How on earth has he managed to achieve that in celebration? I do not know. That's going to be one of life's mysteries, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll answers on a postcard, please. But as all the drivers cool on down and the Oris Racing drivers there queue up together, well, what a race it has been. An absolutely incredible one. And, well, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any Stuart's inquiries. And here they come. So after an absolutely brilliant 60 minutes of racing from start to finish here in round 8 of 8 in Season 7 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, sponsored by Oris Digital, we saw Stuart Reynolds, who a big fan in the YouTube chat there of Most Wanted, who says, big Reynolds fan right here, followed him ever since he started out. Well, that's absolutely fantastic to see. Well, definitely all the Stuart Reynolds fans are going to be absolutely jubilant in the fact the Furious Simsport driver takes a 4th win in a row, his 4th win of the season, and that is the crowning jewel in his provisional drivers championship title in the overall championship, and by in the end 3.7 seconds over Satellite Racing's Nils Core. RD Simsport, Matthias Penslar rounded off the top 3 there, and the Finnish driver, well, you've got to feel for him. I think he felt as though he'd been doing everything right to contest the win, but that small mistake under braking at the Hislop chicane just ruined his line, and after that it took him out of the running for the win. But a 3rd place today, he definitely earned it, and he has put Reynolds under so much pressure, and some would say as much as Alex Gall this season. Well done to him. Furious Simsport's Matthias 10 was 4th in the end, and he couldn't quite stow the leaders after his spin at Knickerbrook Corner, but he did well to recover and finish 4th ahead of John Bailiff, your AM winner in the season, in the championship, and in the race here today, and a 5th place overall. Bailiff could not have asked for a better end to the season with a bit of racing, completely controlling this race, and indeed going the longest of everybody on a single tank of fuel in the second stint. Ben Idris Abdullahi, he finished 6th for Satellite Racing, coming through the field in the end to guarantee the team's provisional champion status, ahead of Jake Cranstow for Masters of Talk, and then we did see Dennis Van Beelen, 2nd of the AMs, 8th overall for Chicane Apex Misses, ahead of Mark Johnson, who rounded off the AM podium there with that 9th place finish for Trap Mouse Racing. An absolutely brilliant run forward for him. Not able to close down Van Beelen, but able to stay in his rearview mirrors all the way through the entire race. Rob Sharp in the end took 4th place in AM, 10th overall. Brilliant effort from the Oulton Racing driver, enjoying plenty of battling with the faster cars on the straight, but in the corners, which is where his speed was at, and behind him was Lee Berridge, who looked strong in the early stages, but the boosted Motorsport Ford Mustang lost tyre life as it went on, and for Berridge it was all about trying to hold on for dear life. Oliver Carwadine could not find his way through and had to settle for 12th in the end, ahead of Paul Goffin, with Ryan Penny and Kim Such completed the top 15, and then the last of your finishers on the lead lap were none other than John Roberts, who finished in 16th for Boosted Motorsport. It was a lap down to Heinz Mail with that late retirement after getting it wrong at what was Denton's Bend, and that carried through into Cascades, and it was 5 laps down, but he still finished for Andy Marston there for SRM Black, and we did have your sole retiree after that huge open lap incident for Simon Poe for F-Tech Racing, and well, I think a bit of an unfortunate end to his day in what was the Rexy machine. But coming to the AM class finishing positions, of course, because we do have our AM class championships, we almost must talk about these because they do score their own points in their class, and John Bailiff in the end making it a 5th win of the season. And well, that headline would say he's dominated the season, and some would say he has. Others would say, in the end, he's had to rise to the occasion with the challenge of many, and the winner or Bennett Racing driver really living up to the first part of his namesake, if not all of it. Where he hasn't been winning it, he certainly has been winning it. The Dennis Van Beelen Chicane and Apex Miss of 69 in the end, had a nice end to the season. In at 2nd place there, the Dutchman, had a Mark Johnson who completed that top 3 for Trap Mouse Racing, and finally getting that podium he deserves. Rob Sharp was full for Oulton Racing, and in the end, well, that guarantees his 3rd place spot in the championship behind Dennis Van Beelen, with, of course, the pair leaping over Chris Jennings, who wasn't here today, and Lee Berridge completed that top 5 for Boosted Motorsport. In a Ford Mustang that was tried, it was tired, but in the end, he definitely held on for dear life ahead of the Oris Racing Yellow BMW of Oliver Carwadine. Paul Goffin finished 7th for SRM Black, enjoyed a brilliant battle with the Oris Racing Red Machines of Ryan Penny and Kim Such, who finished right behind, and there was a further 10 seconds to John Roberts, who completed the AM top 10. The Boosted Motorsport driver just struggling in the season finale, but still, he'll be back in full force next season, you can be certain of that. It was a lap down for Oris Racing Yellow's Heinz Mayer after that late instant, unfortunately, battling with Lee Berridge, and then Andy Mars Marston, your final finisher, 5 laps down the but as classified for SRM Black. But with that, ladies and gents, that concludes all of your racing here today, and indeed for the entirety of our season campaign. But don't worry, we're not going to go quite silent for too long just yet, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we'll be coming back for our final interviews of the season. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to kick off our final interviews of the season, and we begin with none other than your overall Drivers' Champion provisional, subject to the final standings and judge inquiries of the season. It is none other than Stuart Reynolds, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Stuart. What a way to complete your season. Alex may not have been here to battle for the crown, but I can tell you one thing, you didn't have it easy today. You had a four-way fight for the win, and you stood the test to make it your fourth win in a row. How does it feel, sir, to have won and be our champion?
I can finally relax now. It feels absolutely brilliant to finally be a champion again. It's been a long time since I've won a league event, so it's really good.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I can tell you one thing. I can hear it in your voice. The tension is dissipating quite quickly. But coming into this round, of course, question marks over exactly what you would need to do to be able to do it, whether your rival be on the grid, etc. How did you prepare for this round? Did you take a different approach to perhaps previous rounds? Was it just the same business as usual?
Did a little bit more testing than I normally would. Yeah, just a little bit more testing just to make sure I knew the car, the track, tested it in different track states just to make sure it was all okay. And luckily I had the pace today.
Oh, indeed. We had the pace, and that testing proving quite valuable. And speaking coming into today then, so of course, at some point, I suspect you would have found out that your main rival wasn't here necessarily. Did that change the dynamic when you looked at the race, or do you still think to yourself, well, I'm still in second, I've still got to get some points to make sure this happens?
Made me a little bit calmer. I was a nervous wreck beforehand. With Alex not being there, it's not exactly how I wanted to win the championship, but winning a championship is winning a championship, isn't it? No matter how it comes.
Oh, very true, like you say. But the good thing is, qualifying, well, that told one side of the story, which was we did see you take pole position in the end by the best part of what was 2.5 attempts. Were you a bit surprised at that, or did you think, no, that's exactly how it should have been, given the practice you put in?
I was close to my fastest lap time. I saw that Matthias was pretty quick in practice, so it did come a little bit of a shock to be that far ahead of him, to be honest.
All fair play. And then when we went green flag racing, I mean, all that gap in qualifying didn't seem to exist at all in the race. Just take us through, particularly the first half of the race when it was the four of you together and you were constantly trying to find a way past the man who pipped you to the post on the opening lap.
It was, well, I was more testing to see where I could try and overtake or possibly force a mistake more than actually going for the overtake. I wanted to rile him up, to push him into a mistake later on in the race because I didn't want to do it too early because Nils could have taken over or Matthias could have taken it. So I wanted to see where I could force it.
I see. A very smart move there. And, well, as the racing went on, it wasn't necessarily... Well, there was a Matthias who made a mistake, but it wasn't necessarily the Matthias you were trying to rile up. Your teammate made a slight mistake at Knickerbrook Corner. Did you notice, or did you have to hear over the radio that he'd gone for a spin?
I heard him first before I saw what was going on. Yeah, he's had a bit of trouble with that corner in testing and in the race today, clearly.
Oh dear, well, it may have got a bit rolled for Matthias 10, but then, of course, first pit stop, very close between yourself and Matthias Pencelar, with Nils Core right behind. Second stint, coming towards the end of it, you both come down towards what was the Hislop chicane. You're on the outside, you're trying to probe once again, and then suddenly, he goes a little bit deep under braking. What was it like from your perspective?
Scary, because I didn't know whereabouts he was going to come back.
Oh, bit of a scary moment there, but still, he came back in the end, and you all gave each other plenty of space. We saw that. It was some brilliant awareness of everyone involved, but that was the lead in your hands, and at that point onwards, I can imagine the only worry you perhaps had in your mind was, what was Nils Core doing behind you, because he never left you.
No, he just seemed to attach himself, and then, obviously, when we got to the last pit stop, I came out about 3 seconds ahead of him, and I thought, I'll just keep that gap. I'll just keep doing the similar lap times and try and keep that gap. If he was going to close, I'd have pushed, but he never closed down.
Oh, fair play. Well, in the end, he never was able to quite close down. We saw that going on to the final stint, and come the end of it, you brought home a win by the best part of almost 4 seconds. I mean, a fourth win in a row. You've been on an absolute storm in the second half of the season, Stuart. It must feel like perfection the way to wrap things up like this.
Yeah, it does. I never thought I'd do 4 wins on the trot. Never in a million years, but I've done it. I'm proud of myself. I set out to do what I wanted to do, which was finish high up in the championship.
Well, brilliant end to the season for yourself. And with it now, of course, the ultimate question we do have to ask. Details are still being figured out, but Season 8, when it does come, can we expect you back on the grid to defend your title?
Oh, definitely. I will definitely be back here. The SRM Championship is probably one of the best GT4 leagues around. So if anybody wants to join it, join it. It's a great laugh.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing you back on the grid when Season 8 does arrive, because, of course, you've been an absolute star, no doubt about it, Stuart, and this championship crown, definitely a deserved one. But, of course, as we get ready to let you go, first I've got 2 questions for you, one of which is, going into the next season, if we were to put any circuit on the calendar, not saying you'll get it as a special wish or anything like that, but if we could pick any circuit, what would it be?
That's a tough one, because there's quite a lot of tracks that I do like, but also a lot of tracks that I don't like. To make things really interesting, Long Beach or Detroit. Love those tracks.
Oh, some very good choices there. 2 street circuits of the USA, one no longer existing, but Captain iRacing the other, visited there year on year by GT4s and LMP3s. Good choices there, I think. And of course, our last question. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Just Fury Swim Sport for taking a chance on me, and obviously their sponsor, Abruzzi Racewear.
Well, Stuart, they definitely took a chance on the right man, I can tell you that, because you are our provisional Season 7 overall drivers champion for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. You've deserved it every step of the way. Congratulations again, good sir, and thank you for joining me in the interview room. Rejoice, enjoy it, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. See you next season.
Will do. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy Stuart Reynolds. I think he's still trying to just piece together a couple of the pieces of it right now, in the fact that you can hear it in his voice. There's relief, there's happiness, the tension is ebbing away from him, and will understandably, I think he's now just coming to terms with the fact he has finally done it. He has achieved what he set out to do, which was to take that crown. And as he mentioned there, it has been a long time since he has won a title in a sim racing series, but he's finally done it. Openly admitting it's not the way he wanted to win it necessarily with the absence of Alex Gall, but taking that away, of course, it took some pressure off going into this race, but he still had to have done the groundwork beforehand, and he still needed to get it home today. And admitting there the fact as well, this 4-way fight for the win in the end really kept him guessing every step of the way, and what a battle it was between himself, Pentelar, and also Core with his teammate Atem getting involved as well. Albeit he mentioned there the fact that all the jostling we did see in the early stages, it was his idea to try and put some mental pressure onto the RD Sim Sport drive to see if he could force out a mistake, and that did come towards the end of the second stint, but he was a bit wary of the fact that when it did happen, well, it was a bit of pandemonium down at what was the Hislop chicane, but they all did brilliantly in negotiating it, and that was the turning point, with the other one being when Nils Core could not stay with him on the final stint. But for Stuart Reynolds in the end, he really has risen over the course of this season, and where others have fallen, he's risen to the challenge, and that's why he is your Season 7 champion. And the fact he's already said he will be back for Season 8 to defend his crown, we look forward to him doing so, because I can imagine the competition is only going to get higher. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we get ready now for our second interview. And, well, we are going to be coming to another one of our champions very shortly, and well, you'll probably guess who it may be, but we'll leave you hanging if we'll be back in about 10 seconds' time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we go from our overall Drivers' Champion to none other than what is our AM Drivers' Champion, our first ever AM Champion, I should say. It's John Bailiff. Good evening to you, John. Well done on what is an incredible achievement. But to hear it from the man himself, how do you feel knowing you are our first ever AM Champion in this series?
Oh, thank you very much. It's, I think, a relief to get it done. It's one of those that you never quite know how it's going to go, and one mistake could then like derail it all. So I'm glad that the race went smoothly and the result came.
Oh, indeed. The result definitely came and it went smooth. But to be fair, it has been quite a journey for yourself this season, because on paper, at least, many would say when you've taken out your 5th and final win of the season, you perhaps could have had this wrapped up a bit earlier. But it's been an up and down journey, should we say, to get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of it started off pretty well with Spa, but I think that was more of a surprise and a lucky result, because I kind of avoided some chaos. Then we had sort of the disconnect at Donington, which was one of those things, annoying, but these things happen. It's basically, I guess, the equivalent of an engine failure. And then I just kind of tried to just run my race in a certain way. The only time I didn't do that was at Nürburgring, and it led to me crashing. So I just had to take it steady, fuel save, and generally when I stuck to that, the results kind of happened.
Well, definitely well, it's interesting to hear the way you approached it as the season went on, really more settling into that focus of, like you say, the fuel saving and gradually grinding out the results. And from your perspective, I mean, you haven't come into this season as a dominant driver. A bit of a surprise at Spa-Francorchamps, but what's perhaps the thing you've learned most over the course of the season?
I think it is just the power of that saving the fuel, because like if you look at tonight, I feel like in the first stint I'd got Dennis right behind me, Mark right behind him, and then it was as the pit stops happened, that's where the time was sort of gained, and it's sort of a few seconds in the first stop, and then sort of another decent chunk in the last stop when we're taking less fuel. So it just feels like you might be sort of at the same point at the start of the race, but just saving that bit extra fuel, doing those extra few laps, sort of has a decent reward time-wise at the end.
Oh, I see that, and definitely it proved very valuable, the fuel saving, like you mentioned, a huge skill to learn, and you definitely mastered it as the season went on. But coming into today now, qualifying, 7th place overall, and it did look as though in qualifying you just had the edge once again on your rivals in a BMW that's always looking quick in your hands. Is Oulton Park a circuit you like? Because you seemed very happy here.
Um, I would say it's a good place to finish the season, because I think it's probably my favourite track on iRacing. It's one that I've generally always done well at and had some really good results here. So I was certainly happy when I saw the schedule that we were finishing at Oulton Park, because it's generally a good track. So yeah.
Oh, fair play. Well, good circuit for you to end the season on, and well, with that, of course, as you went into this round then, of course, qualifying 7th and pole in class. Race gets underway. It's a bit crowded at the start, but you nailed the start. And after that, it looked as though you were able to relax a little bit. Did it feel like that in the car?
Well, the first lap was a bit sketchy. I think there was some people didn't react to the start particularly well, so I got a decent start, and then there was a bit of a kerfuffle in the hairpin. So it was trying to work out where to go, because we had a sort of car in the middle, but sort of backed off, just found a bit of space, and then found myself behind Jake, who I was in Discord with, so we're sort of in good communication. So I then just sort of sat behind Jake and sort of took it as it was, sort of settled in.
I see. Well, a fair approach, to be fair, to just settle down and get into the rhyme and rhythm. And once you'd settled in, we saw you open up the gap gradually as time went on. Although, the one thing I always love about you... oh, goodness me, I was to stumble over names then. John, I was about to call you Niels for some reason. My apologies. But the one thing I do love about you, John, is the fact that you're never quite satisfied by looks of things in just settling for the lead of the AM class. We did see, as the race went on, you just chasing after some of the pros up the road from you, including none other than Matthias Tem towards the end. Do you use them as a bit of a benchmark, perhaps?
Yeah, it's always useful to sort of see where you compare, and it was quite nice today, sort of being just behind Matthias, and then I think it was Ben just behind me, sort of losing Matthias slightly, but sort of gapping Ben. I feel like if I'd not made a mistake on my in lap, that I could have jumped Matthias in the last stop. I don't think necessarily I'd have had enough to stay in front of him, but it's always good when you're sort of battling it with the pros. So I think my result today was probably the best I've had all season overall.
Oh, fair. And I think that's a very astute way of saying it. I'd agree with you on that. This definitely has been your best result of the season, all things considered. But now the question is, what's next for yourself? You are our first ever AM champion. Can we expect you to be back on the grid next season, perhaps looking to take it to some of the bigger names in the pro class?
Well, I'll have to see what happens with the schedule and what other things I've got going on. But I think I'll be looking to sign up and then see where it goes.
Ah, fantastic. We'd love to have you back on the grid. I'm sure many would agree with me on that one. But as we get ready to let you go, John, if you were to come back and we were to put a circuit of your choosing onto the calendar, it can't be one of the ones you've seen this season, however. It has to be something different. What would it be?
That's a tough one. I mean, I was about to say Oulton Park, but I think Thruxton, and that's got a good flow to it, and I've had some good races around there.
All fair play. Well, the fastest circuit in the UK, Thruxton. We'd definitely love to see a circuit like that one day make its way into GT4 racing. But the final question I do have for you, John, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just thanks for Jake for the company tonight, and thanks for the family that are watching, and thank you for the broadcast and the guys that have organised it. I know it takes a lot of work to put something like this together, and it's been really well organised. So thank you for that.
Well, we have to say a big thank you to you, John, because it's been an absolute joy to see you rise up through the ranks as the season has gone on and become our first ever AM champion in the SRM GT4 Challenge. Congratulations, you've done it. You've earned it the hard way. We'll leave it there, but I wish you a great rest of your evening. Savour the moment, my friend, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again sooner than later.
Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very relieved and pleased John Bailiff. And it was really good to hear about the fact that the one thing he'd really focused on as the season had gone on was fuel saving. He felt it was the most powerful tool in terms of being able to achieve results. And it was noticeable because you definitely saw in the second half of the season one of the big themes that the Win It or Bin It racing drivers really getting into. And we saw it here today, really the ultimate demonstration of it is the fact he had the shortest second pit stop of everybody. Now you could say, well, when he had a bit of a pace advantage, he was able to do it more liberally. Yes, but he's perfected the technique and it's proven so powerful when he has been under that pressure, when he hasn't had the outright ability to run away with a win, he's been able to make sure the win comes to him because of the strategic advantage. And that's why John Bailiff has been such a strong package in the AM class and why he has been your AM Drivers Champion. But he's not had it all easy. Talked about the up and down affairs of the early stage of the season, but for it all, he has come on strong. And what a suggestion there as well to say Thruxton. Well, of course, he'd love to see Oulton Park back on the calendar. We all would, but I always want to see what other drivers do think about. And well, Thruxton, the high-speed circuit with very little room for braking. I think GT4s will go quick there, wouldn't you, ladies and gentlemen? Well, you never know. It may end up on the calendar at some point. However, we've got one more interview to come this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be stepping away for a brief moment, but when we come back, well, we may have one or two individuals in the interview room, and we're going to be speaking to some more champions, so therefore you probably know who it's going to be with. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interviews of the evening, we do apologise for the slight delay there, making sure they're both ready to come on in. We're going to be hearing from the satellite racing pair of Ben Idris Abdullahi and Niels Kaur, who both join me in the interview room now. Congratulations, gentlemen. Provisionally, you've both done it. Satellite Racing are your team's champions for Season 7. Starting with yourself, Ben, how does it feel?
It was amazing to conclude the season on a high and to get the team championship with Niels.
What a fantastic conclusion for yourself, Niels, from your perspective. Oh dear, well I think his microphone may not be working at the moment. We'll stay with yourself, Ben, for a little bit. A strong showing tonight, and indeed your second half of the season. We've really seen you come alive in that Ford Mustang, battling in the end and finishing 6th. Are you happy with that result?
Yeah, it was a good recovery after the first lap incident. Managed to stay out of troubles, not make too many mistakes. Then just try to catch up toward the end for P5, but couldn't make it. But then it was still a good result to end the season.
Oh, fair play. And just for clarity, ladies and gentlemen, sadly, we're not going to be able to speak to Niels Kaur due to a connection issue. So therefore, we're going to focus on Ben. But to be fair, I can't complain. It's good to chat to the man from Satellite Racing. And good recovery drive from what was the perspective of it all going wrong at the start of the race. Although, what we did see is, for you to recover, you had to fight your way past some AMs. And these AM drivers, they're not slow by any means. They really do fight for those spots just as much as other pros.
Yep, absolutely. They are still very fast drivers and really good to race with. So you have to work toward the moves and also to keep up with them.
Well, they make you work hard, but in the end, we did see you gradually craft your way on past. First, it was Mark Johnson's McLaren, then later, of course, finding your way past Dennis Van Beelen's own Ford Mustang. Although one thing we did notice today was that the Ford Mustang seemed to have a lot of pace early on, and then suddenly the pace just seems to have dropped away. Was there perhaps an issue with tyre life on the Mustang here?
It might have been the tires indeed. I think in qualifying it was the same. The very first laps were really good. Then it was hard to put that together, and since I did a slight mistake on my quali lap, I couldn't really put it together. And then it felt the same in the race, where the first laps were good, and then the tires kind of went bad.
Well, unfortunately, the tyres didn't stay quite as consistent as perhaps some of the other cars out there. We still saw you put on some absolutely solid laps. And looking at the bigger picture of the season now, whilst Nils has in his BMW perhaps moved forwards as the season has gone on, we've seen you stay relatively competitive and continue chasing down top fives, if not just outside the top five in the pros and overall. Are you happy with your individual results?
I think I could have done a bit better at certain rounds, but overall it was good. It was still a very good season with the car, and really encouraging to drive and be able to get those top five.
Oh, indeed. A good season, like you say, but still, there's always more results out there. And naturally, that brings me to my next question, which is, firstly, are you guys going to be back next season to defend your title?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still going to target the next season with SRM. We've been in the league for a couple of seasons, Nils a lot more than me, so we're happy with the league, to be honest.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great news. We look forward to seeing you both back on the grid looking to give it your all. And then another question I do have, of course, we've seen the two of you have two different cars this season. Could we expect that one day you might both agree on the same car, perhaps?
We'll have to see. We kind of freestyle it every time at the start of the season, so we'll just have to see for Season 8.
All fair play. We'll have to see for Season 8, although as I do get ready to gradually let you guys go, and I wonder if Nils will be able to put this perhaps in the chat and we'll be able to read it out for him. If you could pick any circuit to go on the calendar, it's not allowed to be one we've raced at this season, what would it be?
You're putting me on the spot a bit, but...
Sorry, say again?
Daytona. Perhaps Daytona.
Daytona. All fair play. So you say Daytona, and meanwhile, Nils has said he would look for the Nordschleife. Goodness me, both of you there looking for two very different endurance circuits. And well, to be fair, spices the variety of life. I do have to wonder, would Daytona, well, not Daytona, would the Nordschleife be on your list as well, Ben?
Yeah, it's an excellent track, so it would be as well.
Oh, fair play, fair play. And then my very last question, of course, as always I do have to ask, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, a big shout out to Nils, a big shout out as well to Alex who couldn't make it, and a big shout out to Dennis and everyone who watched us, and then the sponsors who support the team. And obviously you, Paul, for the quality commentary on every race.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Well, very grateful for your kind words. I'm sure all the admin team will be as well. But we need to say a huge thank you to yourself and Nils, not just for joining me in the interview room this evening. It's a shame it didn't quite work out for Nils, but the fact he's here in spirit with us and the fact that he has offered up the time is so great from him. But most importantly, well done to you both on your team's championship crown. Well deserved to become our Season 7 team's champions. And we look forward to seeing you guys defend it in Season 8. But until then, rejoice, savour it, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul. You too. Have a nice evening.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our team's champions of Ben Idris Abdullahi, and then via text-to-speech, Nils Kaur there. And, well, the Satellite Racing pair delivering a great season. And from Ben's perspective, firstly, very happy the team with regards to their runner results over the season. And both really talking about the fact that from Nils' perspective, of course, acknowledging that he's constantly been nipping at what has been the top fives, if not the podium, as the season has gone on. Whereas for Ben, it has been a season that's been a little bit more uphill by comparison. And, well, Ben has been drawing a bit on the experience of his teammate of Nils in order to be able to move forward. But to be fair, he's done a great job in that Ford Mustang, and he was happy for the most part of his performances, but was hoping perhaps he could have been just a bit further up the order, particularly later in the season. But today, I think really this round has encapsulated what has made them such a strong team. Nils has been perhaps the rock heading for the podiums, whereas for Ben Idris Abdullahi, he's never given up when things haven't quite worked out, and he's always chased those points down, and what it takes two teammates to be a team's championship pair, and that's what they've been able to do. They've done an absolutely fantastic job, no doubt about it, and in the end, that is why they are your provisional team's champions, because they have worked together, they've seen each other's strengths, they've seen each other's weaknesses. Although it's interesting in the fact that when I did mention, will we see them both in the same car next season, the fact they said, well, we'll have to wait and see, because having two different cars, one has more strengths and weaknesses in one direction than the other, well, it does add variety, but understandably, also, if you're both in the same car, you can both get that little bit more data about each other. So it swings and roundabouts, it cuts one way and it cuts the other, but either way, I think both drivers absolutely enjoying themselves, and that's what we love to see. But also talking about the circuits there, and the fact that both having two very different circuits, albeit both endurance circuits, Daytona for what was Ben, and none other than the Nordschleife for Nils. Well, I get the feeling if those circuits make their way on, they may just be strong there. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we need to conclude our interviews there. And, well, as we do, a very brief moment, we will be giving you a reminder of who we've interviewed this evening, as we just do get that sorted out technically in the background. And we have made that happen. And, well, here's a reminder then, ladies and gentlemen. We've spoken to this evening all of your championship winners, provisionally subject to the final stewards' inquiries. First off, of course, we spoke to our overall drivers' champion of Stuart Reynolds for Fury Simsport, and in the end, what a brilliant job from him, taking the win today, his fourth win in a row, and with it sealing the title in absolutely ecstatic fashion. We also do need to say a big thank you to John Bailiff, our second interviewee, our AM Drivers Champion, our first AM Drivers Champion ever in the series history, and well, what a way to do it in the end with a brilliant win and a top 5 overall. He couldn't have asked for a better way to end his season on such a strong note. We also then heard from what was our team's champions, both in the pro class, and that was the combination pair of Nils Kaur and Ben Idris Abdullahi from Satellite Racing, and well done to them both on what has been a brilliant team's championship campaign. Although they've been kept honest every step of the way by Chicane and Apex Missers, in the end they got the job done. So a huge thank you to all of our championship winners, and a huge thank you to them, not just their performances on the circuit, and well done to them for that, but also for joining me in the interview room. And of course, we look forward to seeing whether in Season 8 they can defend their title crowns. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, here are the provisional final standings for this season after round number 8, subject to any stewards' inquiries. We start off then with the overall Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, on 161 points to Alex Gar's 139, it is Fury Simsport Stuart Reynolds who has taken that crown by a comfortable margin in the end. However, of course, we do feel for Alex Gar for the fact he didn't quite make it to this round tonight. But nonetheless, he definitely put on an absolutely brilliant campaign. There's no doubt about it. And nothing can be taken away from both drivers, because even in the absence of Gar today, Reynolds had all the hard work to do. Matthias Pentelar finished third in the end for RD Simsport, just ahead of Nils Kaur by a single point is what it came down to. And then Ben Idris Abdullahi rounded off the top 5 there. And the Satellite Racing drivers together 4th and 5th, and Taylor Adams holding on to that 6th place finish for Agenta Sim Racing. Guy Edwards in the end taking 7th ahead of John Bailiff, your highest place AM in the end, but the winner of Bennett Racing driver be absolutely ecstatic about that, particularly the fact he had to recover that lead of the AM class in the overall championship from Dennis Van Beelen, who had a huge set of performances in the mid portion of the season, and indeed the Chicane and Apex Missers driver will be a bit gutted that he's just missed out on that. Jake Cranstone round off the top 10 there for Masters of Talk, with Rob Sharp best the rest in 11th place for Burris Racing, only a point behind, and it was a further what was 9 points to Chris Jennings for Axis Simsports, who sadly couldn't make this round. However, he'll be very happy, I think, to finish inside that top 15. Matt Slade was ahead of Simon Povey, and Matthias Tem completed the top 15, equal points to Ollie Carwadine. And then we did have John Roberts, Heinz Mayer, Lee Berridge, and Mark Johnson completing that top 20. Ryan Penny was 21st, just creeping ahead of the SRM yellow pair of Daniel Parent-Smith and Dries van Langendonk. And then Dominic Brennan finished 24th ahead of Gary Toole, with the top 30 completed by Kenzo Craigie, Kim Such, Paul Goffin, Duncan Rye, and Eric Manningveld. And then we did see outside the top 30 with points to their name, Daniel Kelleher, Callum Brandt, Andy Marsden, and Gilles Gardner. Those who did not score points: Ben Altrier, Colin Wynn, Edward May, Martin Kenyon, Stephen Burns, and Mark Kent. But that's the overall standings. What about in the AM Drivers' Championship? Well, firstly, here is the proof. John Bailiff, your champion for winning Bennett Racing, the first ever AM champion in the series history, and doing it by 24 points over Dennis Van Beelen in the end. But what a story it was between the two drivers, and it was back and forth every step of the way, but only one of them can win it, and in the end it was John Bailiff who took it. And a phenomenal run at that. 4 points behind him was Rob Sharp, who in the end couldn't quite make it second, but he was able to make it third for Boris Racing. And, well, of course, a big shout out there to your fourth place man of Chris Jennings, who was coming into this round in none other than second place today. But because he missed the round, he has fallen to fourth. But that shouldn't take away from what's been a brilliant debut season in the AM class for him. Oliver Carwadine finished in fifth in the end for Oris Racing Yellow, just pipping Heinzmeyer to the post with that late instant for Heinzmeyer, robbing himself off that fifth place finish. But still, the two teammates together ahead of the boosted motorsport pair of John Roberts and Lee Berridge, who poetically finished on the same points at the end of the season. How about that? And then they were further 13 points ahead of Ryan Penny for Oris Racing Red, who really put on another great show today. And, well, I get the feeling he's one day going to be an AM champion at this rate of knots. Mark Johnson completed the top 10 for Track Mouse Racing, finally finding the podium in the final race today, and all the bad luck has finally gone away, it would seem, ahead of Kim Such and Paul Goffin. And then we did see Andy Marsden in 13th place, just beating Duncan Rye by a single point, and then Gary Toole completed the top 15. Then outside the top 15, it was Eric Manenveld ahead of Jules Gardner, with their Martin Kenyon and Mark Kent completing those with points down to 19th place, and not scoring any points this season, Colin Wynn and Stephen Burns. But then lastly, the provisional final teams championship standings, and here we can see, after what has been a grand total of those 8 rounds, it is by 34 points Satellite Racing have taken the title, with Chicane and Apex Missers in second. It was a further 2 points back to Fury Simsport, who round off the top 3 with Regenta Sim Racing at 53 points further behind. However, that top 3, what a top 3 it was in the end, and Fury Simsport so close to stealing away that second place. Regenta Sim Racing did enough to hold off RD Simsport, who were 3 points behind at the close, and it was a further, what was to the best part of 59 points there for winner of Bennett Racing. But look at how they held on to 6th in the end, ahead of Oris Racing Yellow, who leapt ahead of F-Tech Racing into that 7th place. Master of the Talk and Boosted Motorsport were joint 9th with 65 points apiece, ahead of Axis Simsports, who were 11th. Then we did see SRM Yellow, Oris Racing Red, SRM Black, and Full Tilt Motorsport complete the standings. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now do have to officially round up this broadcast. So it's been an absolutely incredible season, no doubt about it, but we have to say a big thank you to you guys and girls who have been tuning in round after round and enjoying all the racing action. As we do say hello there to Free Me, well, I think that is Free Me UK, or I don't quite know how to say that username correctly, but I'm sure they'll correct me. But either way, well, great season. Big thanks to Paul and SRM, and well, huge thank you to you, good sir, and all the ladies and gentlemen have tuned in every round and enjoyed all the racing action. You guys have made it just as exciting as we have here tried to make it exciting for you, because we're always grateful to have you guys tuning in, week out, as all the racing unfolds. And a big thank you to all the drivers as well who have made up the grid. But if you are sat there right now and you're perhaps thinking to yourself, GT4s, a new season's coming up at some point, I want to be on the grid, how do I get on the grid? Well, to do so, you need to join the official Discord. Invite link available on screen, and if you do join, well, you'll be pointed in the right direction very quickly, and you won't find a more friendly community to get on the grid and go racing with. And after 7 seasons, I can tell you one thing, the friendships, the rivalries, they are as closer as ever, but they're also as fairer as ever. We'd also like to take a big moment to say a thank you to our series sponsor, and that's Oris Digital. And to tell you a little bit more about them, well, if you weren't aware, small teams can make a huge impact in the digital marketing and e-commerce space, and Oris Digital knows that best. With 20 years of collective experience in growing businesses through online marketing channels via the provision of services including affiliate management, Amazon marketing, and digital strategy, Oris Digital delivers tangible results to its clients. If you'd like to know more about how Oris Digital can help grow your business, be sure to head to their website today at www.oris.digital. We'd also like to take a moment as well, ladies and gentlemen, to say a big thank you to our series partner, and that is none other than what is Oboris Watch. Now, one of our drivers, Rob Sharp, runs Oboris Watch, which designs and markets watch faces for smartwatches running Google's Wear OS operating system. And what you can see on the screen, this Sim Racing Magazine or SRM themed watch face is, as of Christmas Eve 2025, now available on the Google Play Store by just searching for GT4C. Just literally type that in and you'll be able to find it on the Google Play Store. It features a pit board that includes your race position, which improves as you near your step target for the day, a racetrack with selectable colours for each sector, and the trademark SRM branding along with other useful information such as heart rate, so you can manage your excitement level in the next SRM race. So if you'd like to know more about Oboris Watch's watch faces for smart watches, why not head to their website at www.oboris.com today. But now the big question, of course, what's next? Well, we can definitely tell you one thing. Sim Racing Magazine shall be back very soon with plenty more racing action. And of course, the big question, Season 8. When's it going to come? Well, here's a teaser. You need to earn every 10th on the grid in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. It is coming soon. Planning is currently underway. We can't give you any dates at the moment, and we don't want to set any false expectations, but do keep in mind, it will be back. We will be back for plenty more GT4 racing action, and it is not too far away. So if you haven't joined the official Discord, do make sure to do so, because you'll want to be there to make sure you're signed up and on that grid of 40 or so drivers and able to compete, whether it be in the overall championship, the AM championship, or in the team's championship, because GT4s are very much alive in iRacing, and Sim Racing Magazine are making sure of that. But of course, as well, do keep in mind, between now and then, we may also have 1 or 2 special events lined up as well in order to keep the appetite building and the adrenaline flowing. So that's why you'll definitely want to be part of the community. But that's why we promise you we'll be back very soon with plenty more racing action. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Season 7 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Championship. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You have been tuning into a Paul Walsh production throughout the entirety of the season. Thank you for being with us all the way through, whether you've joined only for this round or tuned in since the very start. It has been an incredible season of racing. A huge congratulations, of course, to all of our champions, all well deserved, and a huge congratulations to every driver who's been on the grid, whether it's for one or all rounds, because they have made it such a special season. But as we bring the curtain down, well, you've been tuning into this round. It has been the season finale at Oulton Park. That is Season 7 of the GT4 Challenge complete. And it leaves me to say, as always, of course, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, until next season, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.